Councillors, we have our internet back, so we'll start momentarily.
Just that additional clause we had 11 to.
Yes, we absolutely thought of that, but then I thought I heard you say no or something. I was like, oh.
Good morning, councillors. Please take your seats and make sure your mobile devices are switched to silent. I declare the ordinary meeting of Kempsey Shire Council for the 21st of April open. Welcome to all. Council meetings are open to the public and live streamed so that our community can observe council in its decision-making process. I remind everyone that this meeting is being live streamed, and by being present in the chambers, your image and voice may be recorded and broadcast publicly. Recordings will remain available on Council's website for at least 12 months. Any other form of recording requires prior permission. In the chambers today, we have Councillor Alexandra Wyatt.
Good morning, thank you.
Councillor Dean Saul.
Good morning, everybody.
Councillor Noel Selby.
Good morning, everyone.
Deputy Mayor Annette Lawrence.
Good morning, all.
Councillor Arthur Bain.
Yeah, why?
Councillor Adam Matchett.
Morning, all.
Councillor Julie Coburn.
Good morning.
And Councillor Ben Pakes.
Morning, all.
Staff attending today are Mr. Andrew Medal, our Chief Executive.
Good morning, all.
Mr. Daniel Thorogood, Director Corporate and Commercial.
Good morning, everybody.
Mr. Wesley Trotter, Director of Utilities.
Good morning, everybody.
Mr. Philip Hood, Director of Operations and Planning.
Good morning, everyone.
Ms. Vicky Thomas, Group Manager Governance and Information Services.
Good morning.
And Mrs. Talia Webster, Governance Advisor.
Good morning, everyone.
Welcome councillors, the Chief Executive, council staff, members of the public in the gallery, and those watching along via our live stream. Thank you all for being part of today's meeting and for your continued interest in the work of council. We'll now move to our opening prayer. Councillor Saul.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, this is the Lord's Prayer. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us our daily bread and forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you, Councillor Saul. I'll now move to our acknowledgement of country. Deputy Mayor Lawrence.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yawaiwa Maranga. Hello and welcome. I would like to welcome us all here as we meet this morning on Dungay land and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and extend that to everyone here today and who are online. I also acknowledge the stolen generations and the need to change practices to be inclusive. This land always was and always will be Dungay land. Thank you, Majamu.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Lawrence. I'll now move to our acknowledgement of servicemen, women and their families. Council acknowledges the service and sacrifice of Australian servicemen and women and the families who stand beside them. With Anzac Day this weekend, we take time to reflect on those who have served our country, who made the ultimate sacrifice in defence of the freedoms we enjoy today. I encourage all of our community to honour those who have served and continue. This weekend, I hope we can see as many people as possible out to honour our veterans, service people and their families. We recognise that service extends beyond those families who carry that commitment, often in quiet and unseen ways. Anzac Day is not just a moment in history, it's a continuing reminder of courage, resilience and the responsibility that we all share to honour that legacy, lest we forget. I'll now move to item 4, which is apologies and applications of leave for leaves of absence, of which we have none. And I just want to again acknowledge that Kempsey Shire Council is aware of a statement currently circulating on social media that has been attributed to Councillor Noel Selby. Council takes matters of this nature seriously. Kempsey Shire Council does not condone violence in any form. including violence against women, and is committed to fostering a safe and respectful community. Council has consistently advocated for respectful conduct in the public domain, particularly where language or behaviour may contribute to the harm of others. These are the standards I believe we should set as elected members, and one I have sought to lead by. Councillor Selby has advised the Council CEO that the content was posted from his social media account without his consent, and this matter will be considered in accordance with Council's Code of Conduct. Council does not control or oversee councillors' personal social media accounts, and content shared on all those accounts do not represent the views of Kempsey Shire Council. All councillors are expected to uphold the standards of behaviour outlined in the Code of Conduct and the values of the organisation, and the community can expect those standards to be applied. As this matter is currently under review in accordance with the Code of Conduct, it would not be appropriate for council or councillors to comment further at this time. I'll now move to item 5, which is confirmation of minutes from the ordinary meeting held on the 17th of March 2026. Do I have a mover? Councillor Bain, seconded. Councillor Matchett. Is there any dissent? There is no dissent. The motion is carried. I now move to item 6, which is disclosures of interest. Are there any conflicts of interest, councillors? Councillor Wyatt.
I declared a conflict of interest for item 11.11 yesterday. I provided that information as requested through the councillor portal. Is that all I need to say?
Yep, and if you're satisfied that you're dealing with your conflict appropriately and you'll stay in
100%.
the chamber.
100%. Thank you.
Are there any other conflicts, councillors? There are none. I'll now move to item 7, which is the order of business. The purpose of this item is to formally fix the general order of business for today's meeting in accordance with the Code of Meeting Practice. Is there any discussion or proposed variation to the order as published? I believe that Councillor Wyatt, you wanted to bring forward your notice of motion, which I'm happy to bring forward to after my mayoral minute.
Thank you for that. How about I can bring it then, or we can just bring it straight before the item with the special with that's discussed, 11.8.
Yeah, we can move it to to before then.
Thank you.
Are there any other changes to the proposed order, or are we happy?
So can I just have a question? Sorry, just have clarification. So before 11.8, is that what you said?
Yep.
Yeah, copy that. Thank you.
All right. You now have the order as proposed, but there are 12.1s moved before 11.8. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Bain, a seconder. Councillor Selby, and is there any dissent? There is no dissent. The motion is carried. I now move to item 8, which is items passed by exception. In accordance with how papers are prepared, all items are now in the block, and councillors may decide which ones they want to take out to discuss rather than the staff indicating that to us. So councillors, can you please let me know which items that you would like to take out of the block today to discuss? Councillor Bain.
I'd like to remove the IP&R suite.
Yep, 11.2. Councillor Coburn.
Yes, 11.3, Livingstone Street, Southwest Rocks.
Thank you. Councillor Selby.
11.1.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor Selby. Councillor Wyatt.
So we have 1, 2, 3, 8.
Yeah.
And thank you for that clarification about the all the items in there. I was not aware of that. So thanks. And it's sorry to make a statement. It's very good for us, for democracy, for us to be able to decide. Yeah. Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah. Are there any other items that we wish to withdraw today, councillors? If not, there is a recommendation that is being updated before you, and once we have that, we'll move the motion. Actually, before we do that, does anyone have any questions on the item still in the block? Councillor Bain.
Yes, Marangbu, Madam Mayor. As usual, I would like to ask a question regarding the
11.7
cash and investments. Yes, noting that our income from investments is above our budgeted level, could I get what sort of balance is there between the income that we're getting from investments and the costs of borrowings? Is there any level of balance between those, or what percentages?
Mr. Thorogood.
Yes, thank you. I'll have to take the detailed question on notice to get you a number back, but it actually relates to a point that might be made also on the long-term financial plan and so on. And that is, yes, there is definitely an offset between the two. Borrowing costs and the interest that we return on our investments are obviously inextricably linked, with a little bit of margin there for those that want to lend us money. And that also ties into the timing of when we take out loans to fund capital work. So as councillors are probably or should be well aware, whilst we forecast a certain number of loans in each year to fund our capital program, we only draw down on those loans as required for cash flow circumstances. So therefore, the extra income that we make on investments does offset some of that need to borrow money. But to get you an accurate answer on where we sit today versus what we forecast at the start of the year, I'll take that offline. I should be able to have it to you by the end of the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bain. Are there any other questions on items in the block? Councillor Pakes.
Yeah, I've got a question on 11.4 in regarding to the parcels of land detailed in the report. These parcels of land mainly vacant land, or are they a mixture of houses and dwellings? What's the composition of those properties?
Mr. Thorogood.
Yep, through you, Madam Mayor. I'm just pulling up the list and page 43. Yeah, I was about to say I don't have indications on hand. So one of the things, and I appreciate it's probably the first time that you've been through this process, Councillor Pakes. Yep, I might just give them a moment to solve that. We're good? Okay. No, we're not. Now? Okay, very good. Sorry. So what we usually find happens throughout this process is at the point in time that we publish an initial list, there are going to be a number of people on it that have properties in it with dwellings on it, which they do reside in. They usually all clear up through the process. So this list gets advertised, we make contact with these people about our intention, and then we enter into a process where we connect them with services who are able to provide assistance for them to resolve that problem. And traditionally, before we get to a sale, all of the ones which have occupied dwellings on them are usually cleared up. We're not in the practice of selling people's homes out from underneath them. It's not something that usually happens throughout this process. There's a number of options available to people to resolve that. Unfortunately, for some, it gets to this stage before they have sufficient motivation to actually engage with those services to be able to solve those problems.
Councillor Pakes.
And I'd probably another question on the threshold of time. We've been in council for 2 years, and some of these have been in play for, or have had debt there for 12 years, 7 years, 9 years, 10 years. Yep. Why haven't those ones come to council earlier or had action taken earlier than now? Because to me, it's a little bit troubling that we've waited that long. Yep. So to speak to time, the debt has to be outstanding for at least 5 years before we're able to progress to a sale for unpaid rate. So you'll see the minimum ones in there are 6, and they're the ones that have only just hit that threshold. There's a number of properties on here who have been part of this process in previous years and who then have made sufficient payment arrangements such that council has removed them from the list and not progressed to sell, but they have not maintained those payment arrangements and some of them may have paid off substantial amounts of the debt, but not all of it, and then accrue new debt on top of that, which makes it look like the debt's been outstanding for a long time, but a larger proportion of that might be more recent. But we do have a number of people on here who I would say are serial offenders of making commitments to us to get this under control and not following through with those commitments. And as we continue to go through the process and report this to council, we'll provide you advice on those people. And a final question. Given the financial times, do you find that this list is larger than you've had previously, or is this about the same size as what you've had in the past? I know cost of living is common everywhere. How does this list reflect cost of living, or an increase or a decrease historically of what you've had put to council previously?
Yep. Through you, Madam Mayor, this list is about the same as what has come through the previous couple of processes. So no, we're not seeing a substantial increase in people whose rates are outstanding for this sort of duration on what we've previously seen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further questions on items in the block? If there are no further questions, there's a resolution in front of you. Do I have a mover? Councillor Saul, do I have a seconder? Councillor Matchett, is there any dissent? There is no dissent. The motion is carried. We'll now move to item 9, which is a mayoral minute put forward by myself, and that is for our support for the Invest in Us campaign by country mayors. Local government delivers the services our communities rely on every single day: roads, water, waste, community spaces, the basics that keep our towns functioning. But we're doing this with a funding model that simply hasn't kept up. We're being asked to do more, to maintain more, and respond to more, without the level of support needed to sustain it. This isn't a new issue. It's been raised at every level, through NSW, ALGWA, inquiries, and multiple election cycles. But acknowledgement hasn't led to change. In fact, if anything, the situation has gone backwards. In the mid-1990s, about when I was born, financial assistance grants made up 1% of Commonwealth taxation revenue. Today, that sits at roughly 0.5%. Over nearly 30 years, local government's share has effectively been cut in half. So when we talk about increasing funding, we're not asking for something new. We're asking for a return to a level that actually reflects the role we play. And what we're seeing now is a result of that gap. The system is so strained that councils across the state, including ours, are having to look at special rate variations just to keep up with the basics. Instead of being supported by the funding system, we're being left to solve a structural problem at a local level. That's not sustainable, and it's not fair on our communities. And what is different now is the coordinated push we're seeing across the sector. At the recent Country Mayors meeting, there was a strong alignment from councils across New South Wales. NSW and Country Mayors Association have raised this directly with the Prime Minister. ALGWA continues to push it nationally. There's growing support, including from unions, and a clear, consistent message. And that message is simple. Local government is essential, and we are underfunded. This campaign is about building momentum and making it harder for this issue to be acknowledged but not acted on. Because if we want to keep delivering for our communities, not just today but into the future, then the funding has to match our responsibility. Invest in us so we can invest in our communities. Is there any discussion on this mayoral minute today? Councillor Bain?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I would like to speak strongly in favour of this. This is about our community getting a fair share of the Commonwealth tax revenue that we contribute to. At the moment, as Madam Mayor said, 0.51% of Commonwealth tax revenue is allocated to the financial assistance grants. In Kempsey Shire, that equates to approximately $9 million a year. For historical context, when it first came in 1974, the financial assistance grants were a discretionary amount. In 76, it was 1.52% of Commonwealth tax revenue. In 78, it was 1.75%. In 79, it got up to 2% of Commonwealth tax revenue. In 1996, it was back to 1%. In 2023, down to 0.5% again. So it's gone up and down, and as it's gone down, the expectations on what council delivery are has increased significantly. So yes, it's great that we've got local government, New South Wales, country mayors, ALGWA, all of these lobby groups, but it's also important that the residents of Kempsey Shire, the residents and ratepayers of all local government areas lobby their federal member. Get onto your federal member and tell them how important it is, because and I think as we go through things like looking at the long-term financial plan, that additional $9 million a year would make a significant difference to our bottom line and a significant difference to the requirement to maintain services that we need to do rate variations. I think it's really worth noting as well that there are also state government cost shifting issues. We can go into that further later, but there are state government does a fair bit of cost shifting onto local government as well. We've got a state election coming up next year. It's a really, really good time for some leverage for not only the organisations that are related to local government, but individuals to take responsibility and say this enough is enough. Local government is not there to collect taxes for the Commonwealth and the state, and to pick up their slack. Commonwealth and state government need to be supporting us at the chalk face. I don't think teachers don't even use chalk anymore. No, at the bitumen face, at the road face, at the cliff face, where local government, who is the closest to the people, needs that support from Commonwealth and state. So I would commend this to my colleagues and absolutely thank the Mayor for bringing this mayoral minute forward, and let's give it our full support. Marangbu, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bain. I appreciate your support. Councillor Wyatt, then Councillor Coburn.
Yes, please. Thank you. It's good to see invest in us as the campaign, actually, because there's two, we know there's been two inquiries, one a state inquiry and a federal inquiry, both looking at the financial sustainability of local government. Basically, I mean, the bottom line for those inquiries is, can it fund itself? And the state government inquiry recommendations, there's quite a few, but a consistent theme across it was that many councils, particularly regional, are under significant financial strain with limited capacity to fund infrastructure while maintaining services. And they've got quite a few recommendations, but a key recommendation is increase federal funding to council, this financial assistance grants we're talking about. Recommendation 13 is around the depreciation rules, and that New South Wales should review how asset depreciation is calculated for councils, because depreciation is seen as distorting councils' finances, often making them look worse than they are. And then recommendation 15 itself, state government has said this, tackle cost shifting, that New South Wales government should tackle cost shifting, reduce cost shifting, stop the councils being, the financial ground zero, I guess, and fund them properly. That's the state government has said that. And then the federal government inquiry, which is started in 2024 and is ongoing, the key findings of that one is, is the whole funding system for councils broken? I think we can pretty confidently say yes, the financial system is broken, and those two inquiries indicate that it's broken as well. And the federal one says that evidence is that councils are asked to do more with less, including taking on responsibilities that were once handled by other governments. Councils are growing under financial pressure nationwide, with financial sustainability being its biggest problem. A second key message is the role of local government has significantly expanded over time, and this expansion is not being matched by funding increases. Local government has become the delivery arm for services, and levels do not match that. And then the federal assistance grants, as we discussed, has dropped down to 1%. And this is its own inquiry, says that funding hasn't kept up for regional and rural communities. It also acknowledges a massive infrastructure funding gap, that local government manages 75% of Australia's road networks. And there is an estimated $1 billion shortfall in road maintenance funding. So the expectation is that council is to maintain most of the country roads without the money to do so. And then it also talks about cost shifting as being a systematic core problem. So the bottom line from both of those inquiries is that there is less real funding for local government nationwide, more responsibilities, bigger infrastructure backlog, and cost shifting backed into the system. That's the bottom line. So yeah, let's go hard on this, and through their own inquiries, they've said so. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Wyatt. Councillor Coburn.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I also support this mayoral minute. I believe the power and the numbers definitely will give more sway when we look at organisation like the country mayors, NSW, who have had a prolonged campaign on our behalf.
That's a great question. In all my dealings with whether it be a minister, whether I've had the opportunity to meet the Premier, I'm pretty well versed on how our council is going in terms of our financial challenges. And I think that's one of the first answers that any minister gets from me is that we're under real financial pressure here at this level. So I'd have to say my advocacy is continuous and ongoing in every meeting and every dealing that I do or have. We have upcoming meetings at Parliament in May for country mayors and the JO, which will have the opportunity to raise issues there. So yeah, the advocacy is really ongoing. Councillor Saul.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, in response, I commend you for your mayoral minute. Madam Mayor, as you are aware, and my colleagues are aware, local government is a third tier of government, and often we're given the scraps from other governments, state and federal. But yet, we are given responsibility we can't fund. State government is notorious for saying, well, we'll pass it on to local councils and they can deal with it. This campaign hopefully again highlights to the community how important it is that local government is funded correctly and not just again dismissed and left to our own devices. State government, Madam Mayor, has more ways of raising funds than we do, and yet when it comes to supporting council, often reluctant and very recalcitrant to do so. So, Madam Mayor, wonderful. I hope this does well, and I hope it's raised issues to the public, saying yes, we want better services. And if governments listen to the public, then we may actually have a chance to improve not only this shire, but the shires in the state. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Saul. Is there any further discussion, any new contributions, Councillor Pakes?
Yeah, I've probably got a question on this one in regards to country mayor's position and OLG. Do they see country areas having a different funding or an increased funding requirement, given we've got larger volumes of road infrastructure to manage with a smaller volume of population and a smaller rate base? You'd almost think that we could do with 1.2% and the larger metropolitan councils could do with 0.8%. So I don't has this been viewed as a city country situation or all in the one basket? Yes, I agree with the advocacy.
So I think
absolutely.
So I think you'll find in country mayors their actual tagline is what we want is nothing more than equity, because there's an understanding that country councils or regional councils have much more of a burden on them. In terms of roads, we have 1,100 kilometres of roads here, with only one state road being the highway, where if you're in a metro area, the state maintains much more of your roads. Where our own water utility, we have a lot more challenges when it comes to waste and collecting waste. So there's definite recognition from a country mayor's perspective in terms of that advocacy. And from an ALGWA perspective, I think there's just an acknowledgement that all councils are really doing it tough. And I'd have to say, in terms of that, oh my God, I lost the point.
Can I just
yeah
on at your indulgence? Yeah, I look at that in regards to the first OLG conference I went to, and I looked at the
Local Government New South Wales. OLG is the Office of Local Government.
The conference I attended, and I thought to myself, well, there's a real difference in attitude between the country speakers versus the city speakers. We've got different issues. You know, we're a different service level type people. The people that we represent are people we know and see in the street. We don't represent large volumes of people we don't know. So we are very accountable for shortcomings in income, increasing rates, those sorts of things. We're very close to our livelihood. So yeah, I think absolutely country areas need more funding, no doubt about it. And I commend you for the mayoral minute. But yeah, we are different to country to city, our city friends.
Yes, and I finally remembered my point, which was that on the 30th of of April is the Grants Commission hearing. And at the recent Country Mayors, we did hear from Linda Scott, who's the chair of the Grants Commission, so the Financial Assistance Grants Commission. And there is an understanding that, and within the formula, regional councils do get a bigger share of the funding. But obviously the pie just still isn't quite big enough. Is there any further discussion? All right, well,
I'll say one thing.
Yeah.
I just wanted to commend you as well on the Mayoral Minute and just let everyone know I've registered for that. So thanks for sending that around. I think it'd be good for us to attend that the grants meeting, and obviously that the advocacy, like Councillor Paik said, leaning more towards us, being different as well. Like, I just want to echo that as well in terms of, us having a lot larger scale of roads that we've got to maintain. So many people lately as well have been contacting me about roads. Like, obviously our roads are really critical, and, we need more funding, and we need to support our community with maintaining that our roads and infrastructure as well. We have a lot of obviously pressures and stuff as a council, but the roads and flood recovery, ageing assets, to strengthen that, I think, that would be really important to collaborate that and, push for that as well at our local level in terms of that advocacy impact. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Lawrence. And councillors, you do have your own platforms too, so I'd love to see, if this is passed, that you we all join together in this advocacy, and we all continue to spread that message. And with that, I'll close debate. Is there any dissent on this motion? There is none. Item 10 is reports of council, of which there are none. So I'll move to item 11.1, which is the summer season review and parking/camping enforcement update. Is there a mover? Councillor Wyatt, seconded Councillor Selby. Councillor Wyatt, would you like to open debate?
I would, please. Yes. So this was a notice of motion that I put up, and I thank you for the report who prepared it. It's very thorough. And I just want to speak to a couple of points. The first one is about scale and perception, because I think this is where there is some misalignment. So I'm concerned there could be a minimising of the Crescent Head situation. The report states that parking stress increased, but was not concerning for a coastal settlement. And that may be an assessment for like a high-level snapshot view, but it doesn't align well with what I and many in the community are seeing on the ground. I mean, over summer, I received consistent feedback from residents and businesses, and I took my own walkthroughs and spoke directly with business owners, and those concerns weren't isolated. They were broad, repeated, constant. Parking, congestion in the village, the beachfront, access issues for customers, impacts on amenity, flow-on effects from waste, infrastructure condition, and just general presentation. And they're not minor irritations, they go to the functionality and experience of the precinct itself. I spend a significant time of summer at Crescent Head, and I've observed the parking firsthand. What concerns me most is not just the pressure, but the normalisation. Normalisation of non-compliance, where people believe that there is little chance of enforcement, so behaviour shifts, and that's exactly what we are seeing. We see people literally stop their car right in front of that boat ramp in the middle of the road, and you don't do that. I'm sure you don't do that in Manly Beach or Byron Bay or Port Macquarie. And it was mentioned yesterday in all sorts of places where they shouldn't be parked. And this isn't a standard we should accept. This is a behaviour change issue. It brings me to the another point about behaviour change. We need to consider a community-based behaviour change approach supported by evidence and engagements. And so there are standard practices and established models that can be drawn on. And it starts with acknowledging that there is, in fact, a problem to solve. If you think don't be a tosser, that's a campaign around behaviour change to prevent litter. If you think slip, slop, slap, that's a behaviour change campaign around sunscreen. And local councils, governments are doing it everywhere to try and target specific behaviour change through a range of activities. So I do want to acknowledge the positive step in the report about increasing range of presence and a 7-day coverage. That is a good thing, and I've raised that previously. Waste management, we talked about that yesterday. I would be really looking for a strategic, coordinated, precinct-based approach that addresses location, servicing, amenity, cost recovery. I just want to come back where I started about we're hearing what the issues are like, and it says consistent with previous years, but what does that actually mean? What are you measuring against? What data are you using? And at the moment, much of it appears to be based on evidence, like observation rather, not evidence, observation, whether it's council, councillors, staff, or the community. Is there any data? What's the qualitative, what's the quantitative data monitoring? What are you using to make those conclusions? Making informed decisions, we need to be clear about what we're measuring. We need to be clear the decisions that we're making. It needs to be grounded in data and aligned with what acceptable actually looks like in our communities. And the second point I want to talk about is the ranger function. And at present, it looks like operating with a skeleton crew during the peak summer period with high levels of leave. Yet compliance and enforcement are core regulatory functions, and they don't stop when the offices close, between 9 to 5, and they certainly don't reduce during peak period. That's when we need them the most. And I do welcome a proposal about looking at a 7-day roster. Which, when I first raised this in 2023, I put a significant number of questions about the ranger service. I appreciate all the work that has been done, but I still consider that the structure, resourcing, and expectations of the function is still to be resolved. And for me, it's the elephant in the room around how that service is configured, supported, and delivered in its enforcement role. We are asking those rangers to cover a very broad remit, from animal welfare to parking to compliance to broader community regulation. Given the complexity and the growing demand, it's reasonable to question whether that model is still fit for purpose. A specialised or restructured approach, including clearer separations, perhaps could be actively considered. And I know there are industrial issues associated with that, but it's still worth, sowing the seeds of change. There's a recent advertisement of a ranger position, which is fantastic, but one ranger position is not going to resolve a systematic problem. For me, the bottom line is that ranger role needs to be properly structured, resourced, and empowered to deliver its role as outlined in our own policy. We said around compliance and enforcement. That is a key role of local government. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Wyatt. Are there any questions on this item or any Councillor Matchett and then Councillor Pakes, Saul, Coburn?
I guess I need to start off with a procedural question. Yesterday, Mr. Andrews presented about the rubbish situation in Crescent Head. Is it possible to add an amendment to this motion in regards to investigating and reporting back to council with a solution, or is it kind of not part of the same?
Mr. Medal.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So Mr. Andrews referred in his presentation to the Churara meeting. They've subsequently written to me. The ELT had already met to discuss this issue because it was flagged in the report that there were future works that were required. So at the moment, what we're thinking is a 4-stage approach, so that we need to introduce a bin policy, which makes it a problem for anyone to leave their bins out on either the pavement or the street, and then gives us the big stick should we need it to lean in harder on those businesses. The second part's the education to enforcement approach. So having got our framework in place, then we'll go out and begin the educational approach with the businesses, get them to understand the issue that they're creating and what the potential solutions are. Following that, by getting through that process, a better understanding of the mixed commercial, tourism and residential rubbish that's creating the issues there, and discussing with them what might be the solutions and whether there is goodwill to enable a communal collection service, because at the moment there are multiple collection services, so it wouldn't really work to have that communal storage system. So if we can get to an agreement that there is a communal system, then we will find a communal site that will mean that all those bins go to one spot and one contractor can come in regularly and deal with the issue. At the moment, you've got those multiple different players, so people are putting bins out pretty much all week. And as I said last night, some businesses aren't doing the right thing. They've got development approvals which require them to have a bin storage area, which they're using for general storage. So we are going to deal with that. I'll be responding to Mr. Andrews this week and outlining what the council's proposed approach is. So I hope that gives you confidence that we recognise this is a serious issue. For me, it's my first summer season that I've seen, and there are a number of things, including this, which are not good. We do sell ourselves on pristine environment and some really good coastal resorts, and this detracts from that. So I'm absolutely committed to make sure that we sort this out before the next summer season.
Thank you, Mr. Medal. Councillor Pakes.
The public speaker yesterday mentioned around the cleanliness of council bins. Is that something that's been raised previously with council? Is this the first time that we've heard about it? Is that something, is a cleaning program for council staff in that location?
Mr. Medal.
Oh,
So, Mr. Hood hasn't been here long enough probably to get that. There wasn't something that was raised with me over the Christmas period, but from the photos, it obviously is an issue. We're committed to, when people refer things to us, we don't sit on our hands. We try and go out and deal with it. We've got measures in place that we're proposing for, that we put in place for Easter and that we're putting in place for the next summer season. We'll add that to the list. If the team are there, it takes 5 minutes to wipe a bin, or bins. So I'm sure we can add that to the list and make sure that the infrastructure we're responsible for is well maintained.
Further to that, the example given to us from the speakers last night around the combination of tasks from a National Parks worker, from being a consultant to camps in the wrong place. I've been a guy's pulled up to me and said, oh, "You can't camp here." I was having a coffee. He thought I was from out of town. Very good at their PR stuff. Very good at communicating. Very not at all authoritatively. Is that a task that could be modified into a position you think that this outcome might be create? Is it possible?
Yes, absolutely possible. And if you remember back to September when we brought this report through in the first place, we talked about one of the options was of a sort of concierge approach where we had people in the town who were providing advice to tourists and visitors. That wasn't an avenue that we recommended because of the significant cost involved. We haven't got the same approach that National Parks and Wildlife Service are able to put in place at that site. Part of that is probably because of the disparity in the fine revenue that they're able to get from Crown Land compared to what we're able to generate from parking fines. But the other bit that we also talked about is who has that contract to run the camping for national parks, and that was a direct conflict of interest for the council to use the same people because we looked at whether we could piggyback on that contract.
Councillor Saul and Councillor Coburn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I firstly wanted to commend the CEO on this report. It's very thorough. I've had good feedback from the community saying it was well put out and explained what was happening in the community. So thank you for that, Mr. CEO. Madam Mayor, and secondly, again, there has been consternation in the community a few months ago with the proposed price tag of $700,000 for this event. Now it's down to about $240,000 and more amenable to the community. So again, I thank you for the motion, and I do believe it's a way forward. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Saul. Councillor Coburn, then Councillor Lawrence.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I do have a number of questions of things that I've pulled out of that report. So I would like to go through them. I know that the one that was of interest was around the Hat Head Caravan Park amenities block, but I believe that will be addressed in another forum, so I'll leave that one. Another one that came across to me was about the number of shires across, the number of sites across the Shire where the quality of CCTV was not as good as it was required and is being addressed. I would like to ask how that's being addressed and how that'll be funded.
Mr. Medal.
Thank you. Yeah, so we undertook some work last year to understand what the CCTV system was like in the Shire, which is why I was able to make that comment about the patchy nature of the current provision. That provision has been rolled out over many years. It doesn't all talk to it. It's not best practice, and so Mr. Thomas put together an approach with consultants as to what our future CCTV strategy should be. That's been signed off by ELT. We now have a CCTV steering group, which includes the police on that group, and we are working through how we would afford that, and that will come back as a future budget adjustment. So I know one of those groups met yesterday, and I sit on the overall steering group to keep a feel on what's going on. It's a clear issue for our community having that high quality CCTV where we're able to identify what's going on by whom is really important as a deterrent, and at the moment we don't have that.
Just a quick follow-up question to that issue. Can you give an overview of the locations where the CCTV are? My understanding is they're largely in the CBD area within the Kempsey precinct. Are there any other ones located in any of the villages?
Yes, so I'm certainly aware because of issues at Crescent Head that there is CCTV there. I believe Southwest Rocks too.
Sorry, just through you, Madam Mayor, to add to that, we also have coverage in South Kempsey as well. So South Kempsey, Central Kempsey, West Kempsey, Southwest Rocks and Crescent Head all have some coverage. They do not cover the entire CBDs in any of those locations, but they do cover key sites. The sites are selected by consultation with the New South Wales Police, and what's identified in the Boxar statistics as having a high number of events at those, how the sites are selected.
Thank you. Another question. It's around the skeleton crews which are run over the Christmas break, and I know Councillor White also alluded to this. I wonder if Council have ever, having previously worked for Council, we used to have a rotation system, so it was fair for all staff. So it didn't mean that at every Christmas period all staff would be on leave at the same time. Is that something that Council has considered or discussed with the staff?
In my time here, it's not been discussed, and there's been no shortage of volunteers to take the additional money over the Christmas period.
Thank you. Just let me scroll down. Apologies, I won't be a moment. I think the bin one's been discussed. Another one, the shelter at the former coach station. We know that was set on fire, and I acknowledge that Council has demolished that building. I have noted driving into town that all the rubbish that was within that building has now just been dumped next to the site. May I ask why that was not removed?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the refuse which is currently on the site was not from the coach terminal. The coach terminal was cleaned up. The refuse that's currently on the site was from another fire in the actual Shell service station building.
So is that a responsibility of the Shell service station to remove that rubbish?
Correct. That is a responsibility of the landholder to remove that.
Yeah, okay. It's just very unsightly, obviously, as you drive into town. Another one that came into my attention was around the New Year's Eve event that was held at Back Creek. And I noted that Council had a few issues around, I think, probably community behaviour in that area. And I was concerned that there was a potential proposal there for Council to become involved in that. I feel very strongly that there shouldn't be any cost coming to Council in regard to that, seeing as it's...
Do you have a question?
Yeah. That it is an NRMA event. Would it be in the event part of the event application that will be considered?
So my intent for that was some informal management of the Back Creek car park and potentially getting... I had in my mind that Rotary might choose to run a gold coin donation for parking down there, and that our rangers and the police do a very soft enforcement and the face of the community type policing rather than being down there to prosecute people for having a good time. So it wasn't intended to incur any additional costs for Council. in the context of we just don't have that sort of formal events program and funding like some bigger settlements would have for those events.
Through you, Madam Mayor, just a quick correction there. That event's actually run by Ingenia, not by NRMA. So.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Can I ask another question? This is one around the dangerous dogs and animal welfare issue that does seem to take up and absorb a lot of the ranger time. Has council ever investigated to the promotion of early youth education programs which are offered by RSPCA for free?
I'm unaware that we have. I'll take that on notice and see if I can find out.
Thank you. Nearly there. Again, just a final comment around, not a comment, a question around the parking issues and the enforcement in coastal settlements. I know this was covered off by Councillor Wyatt. I think one of the big impacts is, as you stated, that lack of the churn, and it is feedback that I've had from local businesses. Will there be amongst the rangers a bit more focus on particularly the CBD areas where there is overstays in parking, so it will allow that turnover for the businesses to get more access to more customers?
Yes, so the funding that is being reduced, the money that's left is still tied to the initial resolution of council. So those people who are employed in this role will only be looking at parking in coastal settlements, or illegal parking and illegal camping. So there will be a clear focus on the foreshore and the CBD to make sure that there is that churn and fairness.
Thank you.
Councillor Lawrence.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I can't make a speech and then ask questions, can I? Or
you can do it in whichever order you like, but if you have questions, they might change your argument.
Yeah.
So
okay.
that's the intent of questions, is to get clarification to inform you that you have everything correct.
I'll ask questions first then. So just around the bin audit, I just wanted to ask if it can be clarified what is involved in terms of whether it will access bin locations, usage patterns and contamination, and what outcomes council is hoping to achieve from it.
Yes, so my understanding is that the intent will be to identify what bins are in use for what purpose, and then also to identify what waste is in what bin and where the contamination lies, because that will help with our approach to dealing with the communal areas and the education.
And then just on that as well, so will the audit help council determine whether issues experienced over summer are driven by bin replacement and behaviour rather than simply just the number of collections?
Yes, I think they will.
And another one on bins. There's obviously like community feedback around like the weekly bin collection over the Christmas period as well that I've noticed. So will the audit help quantify what the additional cost will be, and whether alternative measures could reduce pressure without increasing landfill and operating costs?
So the intent is purely to deal with the bin issue in the two coastal settlements that were identified rather than the whole of the Shire. I know there has been requests for an additional red bin collection over the Christmas period, and at the moment there's no plans to introduce that. Should evidence come to us that really drives that significant expense to be worth it, then we'll investigate that further.
Do you think like education, more like for community to be aware on what they put in their bins, would be helpful?
Yes, I do, and I'm aware that our contractor has an education program that we're supporting in that vein.
Thanks. Some more questions. Thanks. So just on the, hang on a minute. I think I've asked that one. So just on the needles and the antisocial behaviour, given the volume of needles being collected each week, will council undertake additional communications to raise awareness?
Police, sorry, discussed. So we've tackled some of the outward symptoms of antisocial behaviour, but we now need a stronger long-term process to deal with the root causes, which all come back into the health arena. So our next step is to bring health in on those discussions. And then on a separate front, I'm dealing with our civic maintenance team and our open space teams to make sure that they've got the tools and training to be able to deal with the increased risks they're facing on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you. Just one more question. Just around the pools, I noticed in the reporting, I'm just not sure what obviously it all captures in terms of like future reporting. Could like the pool performance data also reflect sort of organised programs and service-based usage so that council can like have a fuller picture, I guess, of the community visitation? I'm not sure if that's captured because it wasn't obviously noted in the report, but I just noticed a lot of community organisations are utilising the pools, and I noticed like obviously the amount of visitors versus like all of the different pools is fluctuates.
Yes, so I'm sure our commercial business colleagues can capture that information, and then we can use that as an operational level. In terms of pool visitation, I think even though we had the issues at the beaches over the summer and you saw increased use of pools as a result, you've got a really clear outlier in terms of the use of a particular pool. And yeah, we're talking later today about financial sustainability. I wonder how much that's costing per user to keep that particular pool open. And I think we will need to get, when we get to the end of council's cooling off period on pools, yeah, that will one that will need serious reinvestigation.
Thank you, Mr. Medal.
I was asked one more on the pools. I noted that in the report it says something like the leasee determines the amount that they pay. Is that correct?
That's correct. But we, that's what they charge, but we go into a contract with them. So that's their cost recovery. We still have to negotiate that. Councillor Bain and then Councillor Selby.
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I would like to commend council on and acknowledging the September meeting was, looking at investing $760,000 in compliance, and that the tenders that were received for that were none of them were successful, and that the 240,000 is much more realistic and less stress and impact on the budget. Looking at the level of antisocial behaviour as well, like I'm wondering about and I'm not asking this as a question, this is debate, the cost of antisocial behaviour to our community, and that includes the vandalism of toilets, vandalism of public facilities, the burning of the Christmas tree, all of that. The way the antisocial behaviour of waste management, that I can't remember if it was Mr. Baxter or Mr. Andrews that spoke at the public forum yesterday about people putting their their fish guts and the remains of fish and prawn shells in bins where they don't belong, where they're not managing their own waste. They're showing complete disregard for our community. I think also, the antisocial behaviour of parking, and I note in the report it talked about the provision of overflow parking, which wasn't used because people don't want to walk. People want to park where they can, and they're not looking at the option of saying, well, let's drop the kids off and go and park the car further away, and one or two people have to walk. That's a concern to me, and clearly the massive problem with needles, but I note that with the data in in this report, it's talking about roughly 300 needles being found a month, and out of 10 to 15,000 needles that are being used. So that's really only 3% that are not being disposed of properly. I'm very aware that we have a needle and syringe program that is operating, and that there's massive concerns about the use of the drug use in our community. And I commend the fact that we're looking at working together with enforcement and with health to find long-term solutions. And these are not simple solutions. And I also commend in summary, to commend the concept that we need to look at the environment that we're creating. Environmental design can reduce vandalism, can improve waste management, can address parking. So we're looking at design of public spaces. So that's the environment. We're also looking at education. Education is hugely important. Why people understand they can't just chuck their prawn shells down the wherever they feel like. And enforcement. It's that three-pronged approach: good design, good education, and consistent enforcement. So I commend the work that's been done in this very thorough report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Bain. I had Councillor Selby wanting to speak, but did you want to speak for it before? I'll go to you and then Councillor Selby.
Me first? Yeah. Thanks, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I want to begin by thanking the CEO and the staff across the organisation for what is a thorough and frank review of the summer season. This report clearly outlines what's worked well and where the pressure points were and what lessons have been learnt, and that honestly is important for Council, particularly given our current financial constraints. It's clear staff were under considerable pressure across the summer period, especially in waste services, rangers, animal welfare, and responding to antisocial behaviour, while often operating with skeleton crews over Christmas. That effort deserves recognition. I want to specifically acknowledge the section on the Christmas trees. I think the move toward 2 trees, the community decorating days and greater community involvement is really positive response. Rather than simply replacing the infrastructure after vandalism, Council is encouraging pride, connection and shared ownership, and I generally think our community will love this approach. Turning to waste and bins, I appreciate the acknowledgement that many of the issues experienced over summer were not new. That's why I strongly welcome the commitment to a bin audit. Having clear data on where bins are needed, how they're used and what types of bins are causing pressure will help Council move past anecdotal debate and toward evidence-based decisions. I also note the community feedback around wanting weekly bin collections over the busy periods. I understand this would involve a significant cost increase and runs counter to our desire to reduce waste to landfill. However, I think the bin audit will be crucial in helping Council understand whether that request is actually the right solution or whether better replacement, enforcement and behaviour change could address the issue without increasing cost, and noting that Andrew mentioned that it's not across the Macleay Valley, but maybe in the future it could be, because I think that would really help. There's a lot of community discussions points around that. I do think what the public speakers mentioned last night need to be addressed around the bins being moved into other areas in Crescent Head is crucial, because I've also observed that being out there at the cafes and it's not quite smelly and not very nice. On parking enforcement, I want to thank the staff for including the tables in showing fines across locations and years. The transparency is helpful and clearly demonstrates that enforcement levels have remained consistent, and that is not about revenue raising in that context. I support the proposed reduction. I also want to acknowledge the confronting animal welfare figures in the report. While it's distressing to see the number of animals impounded over the short period, it's important to recognise the incredible work that Council staff and Friends of Kempsey Pound are doing. Without their support in fostering and rehoming animals, Council simply wouldn't be able to maintain this service. The section about needles and antisocial behaviour, it's deeply concerning. Obviously, staff collecting 50 to 75 needles every week from public places, including cemeteries, highlights a serious public safety issue. I want to thank staff for managing this work, and I generally hope that the reinstated Return to Earn scheme, along with the increased awareness, leads to a reduction in needles being left in the public spaces. Finally, on the Macleay Valley pools, I support the positive commentary on increased visitation, particularly in the Kempsey and Southwest Rocks. However, I think it's important we recognise that it's not only solely about operators, because I know that it's mentioned about the operators in change in operators. So obviously, organisations are now running new programs at the Kempsey pools, which is amazing to see community attend the pools and participate in these programs. So bringing weekly activities and stuff is really good as well for community and utilising that space. I think also the cost of living pressures may be influencing people's choices. I think, in terms of going to the beach, I'd rather go to the pools because it's closer in Kempsey. So that's obviously contributing to other factors. So overall, I support the recommendation, and proposed approach reflects a balanced, responsible response to this report, and I commend this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Councillor Selby, are you speaking for or you have questions?
I've got questions.
Yeah, what are your questions?
I'm just looking at the illegal parking, camping and that figures. Was this covered for the full period, and what was the period the council was closed?
Mr. Medal.
So this is over the summer season, December, January.
How many weeks?
9, 10 weeks.
9 weeks. Well, I find the figures,
You're going to make sure these need to be questions. You can't frame this as commentary.
No, it's a question, but all right. Well, how the figures that are here, right? 31 in Kempsey this year, 40 at Crescent Head, 35 at Hat Head, and 7 at Southwest Rocks. I find that's strange if that's what they were doing and they were out there for that time, to only come up with 7 fines at Southwest Rocks over that period.
Do you have a question in here, Councillor Selby?
Sorry?
Do you have a question in here, Councillor Selby?
Well, yeah. Why those figures?
So as I've explained to you before, our ranger team at the moment is affected by ill health. So I have 2 members of staff who are unable to work full time. I have the remainder of the team who do work full time. They are, as you can see in the other part of the report, dealing with significant animal welfare issues, which I wish they weren't. That means that the remainder of their time, they have to go out to all the different parts of the Shire for parking or other enforcement issues. They have to deal with some of these issues in pairs. It takes a long period of time to get out to Southwest Rocks, to then move on to another site. And then they've got to go back to Southwest Rocks a couple of hours later to make sure those vehicles are there. We have no automated system. The community have already given pushback when the country club in Crescent Head put up a camera on a roundabout at the weekend. There's clearly no appetite for technological enforcement. So within the budget that you've made available for rangers, they're doing the best they can. They're stretched beyond what the level of expectation is currently. There's just no ability without those new rangers coming in for us to spend time at coastal resorts dealing with parking enforcement over that period.
Right. If there's no further... You have questions, Councillor Wyatt?
I have a lot, but I will actually reduce. The first one is on, I'll reduce it. First one is on the caravan parks. That says Horseshoe Bay and Stewart's Point appear to be performing well, while the others show a low or a nil net promoter score. What is a net promoter score, and how is a net promoter score being measured and reported?
So can you point to me in the report where the net promoter score talks of nil? So we had an issue with Hat Head, and that's now resolved in terms of the net promoter score recovering in February, but I don't see any others in there, Councillor. In terms of how we gather that, the operator of the holiday parks provides a monthly operational report to staff, which includes a survey of significant numbers of visitors to all our parks. It asks questions, and then that response is tabulated and gives us a monthly feedback figure around the Net Promoter Score. The sample size is, statistically significant. It's not just one person complaining or, a handful. It is a decent number, given that we have quite significant usage within the parks. We did have an issue at Hat Head with the operations and the operator over the Christmas period. Elected members were given a bit more of an update last night at our workshop on what we're planning for Horseshoe Bay and Hat Head. And I think that has been addressed. It was certainly addressed really thoroughly at the time by the operator, and I was really pleased with their responsiveness to dealing with poor customer feedback, particularly relating to the amenity block at Hat Head. So we do get a significant amount of information that helps us at an operational level understand what's happening on each of our sites through the comprehensive operational report from the operator.
Right, okay, that's a thorough answer. No, the reference is on page 18, and it doesn't say low. It says Horseshoe Bay, Hollard, and Stuarts Point have performed well. So therefore, I'm assuming that those that aren't reported haven't performed well. So that's fine. Yeah. Okay. I think in there too, and please don't ask me to find it because I didn't copy it, but it says council has indicated a need to improve data collection and performance monitoring within those caravan parks, and we did talk about this yesterday. So will the new license arrangements include requirements for both qualitative and quantitative performance reporting?
So if we were to roll forward the current contract, that would be included, but at the moment council hasn't made a decision on the operating model. So it would be best practice to include that if we were having an external commercial arrangement.
Something that is new and improved from what you're doing now?
I'm pretty impressed with the reports that we get at an operational level. So I'm happy with that.
I think maybe then the issue for me is, can you provide a bit more information in the future, just for noting about how data is collected and used? Because I'm looking at this, I'm looking at evidence-based decision making with qualitative and quantitative data. So I'll just move on to the next question about surf lifesaving patrol. I actually was a surf lifesaver, and I bumped into one at South Kempsey the other day. There's only 5 patrols operating at Crescent Head now from September to Easter, and the coverage has reduced in previous years because they're volunteers. So and there is a difference between paid and non-paid. So what is council's role and provision in of paid lifeguards to supplement volunteer services?
I might ask Mr. Thorogood to provide a bit of the flesh on the bones of this one, but I'm not sure that council has resolved a position on paid or unpaid lifeguards other than the provision through the budget. Mr. Thorogood?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, and I'll point out this is something that sits within Mr. Hood's area of responsibility. It's probably not something that's come across his desk yet. Council tenders for paid provision of lifeguard services for those beaches where it is our view the risk is sufficient that lifeguard services must be provided for public safety purposes. So it's council's view that the services that we provide through those paid lifeguard services are sufficient to cover the risk to the public safety risk to the public. That said, we are very thankful and grateful for the volunteer efforts made by our surf lifesaving clubs in order to patrol those beaches outside of the paid services that we engage. And it's a matter where we're constantly in discussion with them and maintaining good relations with them in order to make sure that we're able to get the best benefit for both them, for the public and for council.
So as I mentioned, the patrols have decreased. So they're patrolling from 10 till 2, and some of them are having to do, 3 or 4 patrols a month as volunteers. And so I've got a question around, well, do you think what is there capacity? No, not capacity. Is there an appetite for an increase in the paid paid lifeguard services, or yeah, I guess because the risk is pretty high. We had quite a few drownings up here this summer, so the risk is pretty high, and the risk I would assume is being determined by Surf Life Saving Australia rather than our observations.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, I wouldn't jump to the conclusion that the best outcome is additional paid lifeguard services. We have a meeting coming up with Surf Life Saving New South Wales regional representative shortly. Paid lifeguard services aren't necessarily the best outcome for the volunteer clubs, and council wants to both cover our own risks as well as promote good outcomes for the clubs. So we'll continue to have discussions with them about how we manage those risks moving forward. But yeah, I wouldn't leap to the assumption that additional paid services are a good outcome, and not a good outcome potentially for us financially either. So yeah, we'll continue to work with Surf Life Saving New South Wales volunteers on what the best path forward is.
That's good. So there's potentially like behaviour change. Okay, so I will move. So what is council's legal responsibilities and liabilities for managing the risk on publicly accessible beaches? Is it council's liability and risk? Who has the liability and risk for not the remote beaches, but I mean the beaches that we promote like Hat Head, Crescent Head, and Southwest Rocks? Where does the liability sit?
Through you, Madam Mayor, there is no liability accruable to a third party for something which is an obvious risk or a dangerous recreational pursuit, and generally swimming and activities in the surf fall into that category. So there is usually no claim against council, or no claim against a surf lifesaving club or a paid lifesaving provider or Crown Lands or anybody else where somebody unfortunately has an incident and drowns in the surf or so on. Where risk does accrue is where we provide a service, for instance, negligently. So somebody might be relying on our service might not be up to scratch. That can accrue some risk for us. Or where there are hidden dangers that we're aware of that we don't adequately mitigate. So where we're at risk of, for instance, dangerous surf conditions and we don't mitigate those, hence why we pay for lifeguard services that place flags that people swim between and so on. But yeah, generally swimming in the ocean is a dangerous recreational pursuit and is carved out from the Civil Liability Act.
Copy that, thank you. And just a question on monitoring and parking of the overnight stays. We talked about the caravan parks, and the report says that notes trends are consistent levels of parking and compliance, parking and camping. So what formal monitoring programs are in place, both qualitative and quantitative, to monitor that?
None. Those figures are based on, I think there were 16 of us in the room to help prepare the different sections of this report, including the rangers and other members from the development and compliance team. People who have lived in the Shire a lot longer than me were saying that they believed the levels were consistent with previous years.
Oh, my other questions were around benchmarks and ground zeros, but it's basically council staff, 16 people sitting around a room making observations on their experience, lived experience.
Yes, that's correct. Just like last night, you heard Chirara saying it was no different this year to previous years.
Hence the need for, yes, okay, copy that. Shall I close now? Oh, no, sorry, one other question. So we're asking rangers to cover a very broad remit, as I mentioned, and as others have mentioned too, from animal welfare to parking compliance. And I think you've answered the question to Noel quite well, but do you think the ranger model is fit for purpose? Or does council believe the ranger model is fit for purpose?
I don't know if council believes.
Does the council,
the administration?
We are the governing body. The organisation of council under your leadership. Does the council consider it is fit for purpose? I think the councillors probably don't, but does the council body itself?
So given the constraints that I face with the staffing issues currently, is as good as we can get. If I had the additional resourcing year round to focus on parking, like we will do for a couple of months over the summer season next year, that would certainly help spread the load across the team.
Sure. Final question. Is there any more debate, or can you please close debate, Councillor
Yep,
White?
thank you. I just want to be clear. I am not, and to Ranger staff and to your team, I'm not I'm not going out to attack rangers. I've been a ranger for 30 years, almost pummeled into the ground trying to do compliance. It is unpleasant. And I can't even imagine having to do the compliance on dogs. That would just be next level unpleasant. So yeah, it's not a very pleasant activity to do, but it is one that we're for to do. So I just want to make it clear, I'm not personally attacking any ranger staff. It is just the broad level of things. And my experience too, and we have body cams, we have partners, we have a 24, a bigger rostering system. So I just want to make that clear. Any ranger staff that's listening, I'm not coming for you directly. I'm actually trying to empathise with you through my own lived experience as a ranger. So I just want to say that I'm also I'm grateful for Chara and to Mark for advocating and their care for Crescent Head and consistently complaining about the bins and being outcome focused rather than complainers. And given that all the questions raised in this room here, it's firmly on the agenda now. So congratulations, well done. It's on the agenda now. There are EPA programs around litter reduction through the Waste and Sustainable Management Strategy and the litter strategy. And there's lots of information about behaviour change on litter and waste management through the EPA. There's a waste management conference in Coffs Harbour in June where waste staff can perhaps collaborate with the industry to think outside the box on what is a good waste management program, system, whatever that looks like. So my questions around and my thought process around ensuring that we have the right information, the right benchmarks, the right people at the table, and the right level of service to support informed decision making and continuous improvement that results in better environment, better looking precinct, better experiences, and less complaints. And I'm looking for leadership, collaboration between the community and the businesses and councils. I'd really like that to include councillors at the table. I'd like to see a shift from where it's always been done this way to an innovation and reform approach. And I can see some shifts. Let's continue to shift, reform, improve, innovate with evidence-based data, not just a few of us making our own observations. It's got to be backed up by data. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White. I'll now put the motion. Is there any dissent? There is no dissent. The motion is carried. I'll now adjourn for morning tea. We are an hour and a half into the meeting and we've only gotten through 2 items, councillors, and we still have 6 left. So just when we come back, just note that we can't go past 4 and that we do have a substantial amount of items to get through. I'll adjourn the meeting until 10:40. All right, thank you, councillors. Starting back a little bit late, my apologies there. But we're now moving to item 11.2, which is the draft integrated planning and reporting suite of documents. Before I ask for a mover, I'll ask for everyone to be quiet. And Mr. Metal, would you please introduce this report?
Point of order. Did we change the sequence there? I thought we were doing 11 point.
In the final adoption, 12.1 was moved to before 11.8. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 12.1, 8 to 12.23. Yeah, no, that's not a problem at all. Mr. Metal.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Elected members, it's my pleasure to introduce this item. It's been almost 11 months since I started in the role, and I've spent that time listening and trying to learn from people right across the communities that we serve. In front of you is the latest iteration in your integrated planning and reporting suite of documents, key component of which is your operating plan for next year, which is the second of 4 intended to enable implementation of your delivery program. The operating plan has been drafted with your input through a process that commenced for you last November. This document and the figures within it represent the journey we were on. They represent where we'd got to collectively in February 2026, and they are our position when we entered the Iran conflict. The ripples of effects from this conflict will continue to be felt across our communities, and Council's not immune to those effects. As a result, the capital programme has been significantly amended as per the communication I sent last week to you. And there is a $106 million reduction across most of Council's capital project streams. Why the late change? I received a briefing from the Office of Local Government which crystallised my thinking. This was given on the 25th of March 2026. As a result, I took action that day. The team have worked so hard and so collaboratively to recast this budget. Our last meeting finished on Thursday night last week, and we issued our proposal the following day. It was not ideal timing, but nothing about this budget was ideal. This budget is now the one I want. More importantly, I think it is the one this community and this council needs to help us springboard forward. At the moment, the council is dealing with the effects of polycrises. We face cost of living pressures just like individuals. We face supply chain disruption, requests for increased wages and increased demand or service levels for things we provide. We are standing with our community, and other reports in this agenda pack identify the significant effort the council staff have put into finding savings and efficiencies, including items 11.1, 11.2, 11.4 and 11.8. AI has been not much of a friend over the last few months, but a simple co-pilot search on what is Kempsey Shire Council doing to reduce costs and expenditure reveals some of the most significant recent and current work. Unlike the private sector, we cannot easily change our income during the year, and this is why the setting of rates is so important. Whilst we can't guarantee the operating plan and figures, they are robust and based on the information we currently know. The Local Government Act provides us with the tools to deal with the VUCA, the volatility, uncertainty, complexity and ambiguity of the environment through the budget review processes. Last few days, a number of us have felt it's easy to feel that the future is quite dark. At these times, it is said that the stars shine most brightly, and I would like to single out the corporate performance team for their efforts in providing Council and its leadership with the financial data and garnering collaboration and consistently going the extra mile in their handling of feedback and reacting to some of the curveballs thrown at them to get the documents before you today. What of the future? As of February 2026, I was confident that the operating budget could be brought back to a small surplus in 27-28. The current context makes me less certain. What I am clear about is that I have a plan and I have support from my colleagues for the work that needs to be done. In the last year, we've built a new executive team that is capable of doing the job needed. What I'm unsure of is the size of the deficit that I am to resolve. I need certainty through this budget process and your consideration of the implementation of the second part of the special rate variation. The gap between what council needs to operate and maintain its infrastructure has widened because only half the SLV has been taken. Because the rate peg does not match up to local government CPI, and because in-year costs have increased above expectations at the budget setting time. IPART were clear that the SLV was a necessity and not a nice to have, and if the process was being undertaken now, the 15% would, I'm certain, have grown. Today, your administration is presenting a bold but measured response to the challenge we face in managing our financial deficit. For me, this is my first year, a reset of the capital budget. For my second year, I intend to present Council with a similar reset of the operating budget. This year, we have a clear message. There is no change to the number of items in the operating plan. We are reprofiling projects. No projects have been completely removed. The messaging is clear that due to geopolitical impacts, some planned projects may be delayed if they cannot be delivered affordably. We will continue to report progress publicly and transparently through the quarterly reporting already in place. And at this stage, I reiterate, all projects are still in the operating plan until we have more information on impacts. I believe this operating plan and budget give us the opportunity to buy us time and to understand how the macroeconomic challenges will impact us at a more micro level. As of today, I am convinced that this is the budget this community needs and that this council needs. I commend it to you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Medal, and thank you to our gallery for their participation at the end there. We do have an alternative motion on the screen in front of us, councillors, and that is an alternative to point 1, which is places the draft integrated planning and reporting suite of documents on public exhibition for a period of at least 28 days, inclusive of the modifications in attachment 11.2.7, which was, I believe, the attachment sent around, and that is on the website that was made available to us last Friday. Do I have a mover for the motion? Councillor Bain, seconded Councillor Matchett. Councillor Bain, would you like to open debate?
Madam Mayor, I would. And I, on receiving 11.2.7, I had some concerns originally, and those concerns were regarding a deferment of expenditure on heavy patching of local and regional roads. Like, I'm very aware that by deferring, long-term costs are going to increase, and those concerns were addressed by Mr. Medal, and I'm very confident that the need to be flexible in the approach to these uncertain geopolitical times. So I'm supportive of the amendment to the modification in 11.2.7. In terms of the IP&R documents, I'd just like to have outline some of the delivery that council are expected to do, and I want people to keep in mind that these are costly deliveries. So when we're looking at, we've got 4 areas: environment, economy, community and leadership. In environment, we're looking at things like flood mitigation, stormwater remediation. We're looking at water quality monitoring, public health and food health inspections, waste management, huge ones, sewer and water, and community education programs. I'm not sure which of those is not core business and essential. In the economy, we're looking at maintaining our largest asset, which is our road network, renewal and rehabilitation of roads, bridge maintenance, curb and guttering and footpaths, the management of the sale yards, airport, and I understand that, you know, there are some differences of opinion about how those could be managed, and I think, you know, they're worth having that's worth having a look at, the business plans. But at the moment, we are where we are with those. Holiday parks, business activation, parking, pedestrian access, and bike plan. You know, these are things that make our community livable. And moving forward, we're going to need to be less reliant, I believe, on petrol and diesel. I also note, like with community, we're looking at the Verge Street plan, the upgrade of Maddie's Flat, the resilience canopy, which is empowering community. I was at a meeting the other day, and it's about empowering community to take on board strategies so that when disaster and natural disasters occur, there's a less dependence on council support. The CEO of the resilience canopy was saying, from Victoria, was saying that there were specific communities that have had long-term impacts that always ring him when there was a problem. The last disasters, that he didn't hear from them, council didn't hear from them because they had the strategies in place themselves. So it's building that resilience, the community resilience, I'm not talking about individuals, into that. In terms of leadership, I think it's really important that, and one of the items in the in the plan is about community engagement and bringing community along to understand. Underline what Mr. Pearson said at the public forum, that we need to have that really clear communication. Councillors and the administration need to be able to communicate with the community about why this rate increase is necessary. You know, we're involved with Local Government New South Wales, Country Mayors Association, ALGWA. These are the lobby groups that are standing up for local government. Are we going to cut those? Ooh. Customer service, always improvement. ARIC, the Audit Risk and Improvement Committee. I've heard people say, oh, you guys need to have, we should have a forensic audit. Well, we do. The place is constantly self-auditing and monitoring. Procurement, asset management, fleet management. These are all the jobs that need to be done. And these jobs that need to be done need to be funded. And they need to be funded. Unfortunately, I believe that we should have ripped the Band-Aid off last year and accepted the full rate increase, but we're going to have to go through the pain again of trying to communicate and outline the necessity of the SRV, but I don't see there's any option but to adopt it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bain. And I really commend your efforts in your time as councillor to really put effort into understanding the finances. Since you've been on council, that's been something I've really noticed about you. Is there any questions on this suite of documents or on this motion? Councillor Wyatt, then Councillor Lawrence.
Sorry, yeah.
I'm happy to go.
Yeah.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Can officers outline how many years some of the projects in the capital program have been carried forward and what criteria will be used to decide which projects will be reprofiled or removed before June?
Mr. Thorogood.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So for now, the majority of the projects which have been deferred or the partially deferred are partially deferred into the following financial year, because what you're seeing there is our timelines to deliver some of those projects have been extended. The entire project is not deferred. We have shifted the end date further forward partially into next year, predominantly reflective of the estimated increase in lead times we're expecting to see, as well as a little bit of, I guess, contractors less inclined to get on the ground right now while fuel prices are as high as they are, hoping that they will go down in the future. So therefore, the majority of them. There are a number of projects which might have been deferred later in the program. For now, we've pushed holiday cabins at Hathead Holiday Park well back, because we've got work that we've committed to do to councillors on concept plans and so on around them before we would reconsider those. So they would come back to council in the future. So therefore, we have not just pushed them into next year.
Thank you. I've got another question. What guardrails is council using to determine acceptable borrowing levels, and how will delivery capacity influence decisions on the timing of the new debt-funded projects?
Thank you. And I might just pull up the document so I can refer you to the particular appendix. But the key metrics that we use to establish what are acceptable borrowing levels are the KPIs, which form part of the long-term financial plan. So we use them to work out exactly what our carrying capacity for debt is. In the long-term financial plan at the moment, in these years, we still have a reasonably healthy capacity to be able to take on debt. That deteriorates as the 10 years go on. The other thing, which is an important guardrail there, obviously, is cost escalations. So when we take the particularly large capital projects, for instance, that we have in the water and sewer program, if we defer those programs where you're looking at tens of millions of dollars, then the cost escalation is significant and usually far exceeds the interest payments on the debt that we need to take out to deliver those projects sooner. So whilst you will see that some of those projects have had sums of money deferred into next year at this point in time, the CEO referred to the quarterly budget review process. We will still be working to deliver those projects as quickly as we can possibly deliver those projects. And if the opportunity arises to deliver them quickly, then some of that money will be brought forward at a future quarterly budget review. And to that end, we're making sure that the plan has sufficient capital and liquidity in it that we're able to fund those commitments if we are able to bring those forward.
Another question. The report identifies a need for 4 to 5 million per year in recurring savings or revenue. What proportion of that is realistically achievable without service reductions?
Mr. Medal.
Thank you. So that's all part of the plan for the next year. There's a lot of variables at the moment, but the vast majority of that is not planned to impact on any services. It's designed to target other ways which don't impact on the community. So the approach that I'm looking to take with the plan is to divide the work into a series of streams, each of which will have a savings target that will be quite significant. There'll be streams like human resources, like procurement, like materials, like consultants, and then staff across the organisation will have work groups that will deliver where we can make those targets. That gives me confidence that as of today, we can do that without adversely impacting on service provision for our community. It's not fair that our community are hurt more because of decisions that have been made previously that have led us to be in today's situation. So our community really needs services, and I think as we head further into a cost of living crisis and other things associated with that, our community are going to need more, not less, from this council.
And just one last question. How will council clearly communicate during the exhibition period that not all projects will be listed? Hang on, let me repeat that. That not all projects listed will proceed in 2026 to 27 to avoid raising expectations we already know we can't meet.
Mr. Medal.
So we will provide an update that by the time we go out to public exhibition with this document, that it is crystal clear from the documents placed on exhibition. That will be reinforced by the messaging in our comms plan and in the fact sheets, which provide the flesh on the bones of just the individual lines that you'll find in the OP.
Thank you.
Councillor Wyatt and then Councillor Coburn.
Thank you. I did have a couple of questions and a couple of procedural matters. Which one would you like me to go forward first with? Procedure?
Well, the questions could inform whether you are going to go ahead with that procedural. So
yeah, actually,
yeah,
they will.
so
The procedure first. Yeah,
first.
no, the procedure first, because then it's questions. So I put a few questions to maybe on the weekend about the additional capital works. There's about 6 or 7 questions there, and some of them have changed because of what you just mentioned about that the programs aren't going to be they're just going to be deferred. So this is a procedural bit. So my understanding of the Code of Meeting Practice is that all questions asked have to be answered and then put on public exhibition. So the questions that I submitted, will they be answered and put on public exhibition, or shall I ask them here so that they are publicly answered now?
Yeah, I think we're more than happy to try and answer questions here. Questions we can't answer, Councillor, then we'll provide a written response, and there'll be that ability for anyone to access them.
Okay, thank you. That's good. And the second one is I sent you an amendment. I still would like to put up that amendment and discuss it because there's some procedural matters around that as well. So shall I put the amendment up now? Because I still have questions. So the amendment that I put, okay, I will just go straight to that actually.
So
yeah, no, yeah.
If you're going to raise your amendment, no matter what the questions are, if your questions have no bearing on what procedural thing that you're going to do, then don't ask the questions first, just raise the procedural thing. But if you're going to ask a question and that's leading to an answer because you're looking for clarity on things, then you should ask your questions first. Your question should have a purpose to help you make a decision or do a certain thing, in my view. But yeah.
The question is, and the question is I'm struggling to approve something that is not qualified for me, and I know it's going out on public display. And given that we cannot have briefings under Code 3.31 of the Code of Meeting Practice, so for the community's benefit, we are not allowed to have briefings on anything that is in this agenda item here. And neither do we can't have briefing, and neither community. I'm asking now for a very comprehensive walkthrough of the long-term financial plan, the appendices, for me, my colleagues, councillors, and the community for the public record, and that is on YouTube. And the reason for that question is because prior to this Code of Meeting Practice, we had exceptional briefings from the former director, and I feel I'm not getting that level of briefing. So that's my question. And then my amendment would be, if the answer is no to that, because it would take up a lot of time, is that the amendment is that council provide a comprehensive briefing on the long-term financial plan, the operating plan, and the additional capital project for councillors and the community to be live streamed. And I did say within 28 days. And you've responded to me that that is still not within the Code of Meeting Practice. That's the procedural issue. So I guess then is kind of alludes to what Councillor Lawrence said, is so the Code of Meeting Practice prevents us having briefings. This amendment may not be accepted. How are you going to have this information presented to us and to the community rather than like hundreds of pages of documents? Because it's not working for me.
Mr. Thorogood?
Through you, Madam Mayor, and Council, made submissions, as did a number of people on this when the Code of Meeting Practice was on exhibition. The Minister has been clear that all of the information on which you base a decision must be presented in the meeting papers. We're not allowed to provide information to inform your decision outside of the process around these formal meetings, and therefore briefings, and they have been clear, even briefings open to the public are prohibited. In the FAQ, they say that the prohibition on pre-meeting briefing sessions cannot be avoided by holding a briefing session on matters to be considered at a meeting before the agenda has been issued. A gathering of councillors will be a pre-meeting briefing session and prohibited if it is convened by staff for the purposes of informing councillors about a matter that they will be required to make a decision on at a future council or committee meeting. There is an absolute prohibition on us providing information on which you base your decision outside of the business papers or meetings of council. The documents are attached, though, and the reports are there, and it is our intention that the reports contain all of the information necessary for you to understand those documents. It won't be helpful for this meeting, but perhaps there is a conversation to be held offline to better inform us as to what additional content needs to be included in reports in the future, in order that we're able to provide you with the level of understanding that you require to come to a decision. I know Mr. Medal has anything.
I was only going to add, in terms of the public briefing, there is a section on page 33 of my agenda, which talks around the future engagement, where we have set up a opportunity to meet for all the community organisations across the community representative groups across the Shire, and I'm hoping as many as possible would attend that and be able to have their questions answered on that day.
So is that not, that's the question, that's the amendment that I put up, is that a briefing be offered to community councillors, live streamed on YouTube. That's exactly what I'm asking.
It says attend a presentation from council's executive leadership team, so that would be different from a briefing. And as to it being streamed, I'm not sure if we have the capability for that.
Maybe can change a one-sided conversation. I mean, it's nomenclature, but yes, that's. Sorry, I'm arguing. Go ahead. That's my amendment. My amendment. Yeah, that's my amendment. Is that a Sorry, I've lost it. That the council team, paid staff, provide a comprehensive whatever on the long-term financial plan and the operating plan and the additional capital program for councillors and the community that is live streamed within the next 28 days. Provide a comprehensive lecture, presentation, infographic, dance, video, interactive. Sorry. So I was being bad.
Dancing shoes.
Yeah. Oops.
Should be able to be done. Hey.
So, for clarification, the intent of the future engagement section talks around community representative groups. It would be a briefing in a room like this. We could record that.
Or online.
Yeah. So in terms of how we would present, we can arrange for that to be put on YouTube. It's not going to work well in any of our meeting rooms to do that because we'll be recording looking this way. We won't be recording looking at the gallery. It is, and it's proposed to be a meeting with community representative groups, not a public meeting, because such meetings are often not lead to good outcomes in terms of democracy. So that's what we have proposed. If that is what you're seeking, then I would recommend that the amendment you're putting forward would be acceptable.
Just with it being a public presentation. And
take out councillors.
And just take out councillors, just a public presentation. We'll be able to attend in any case, I imagine. If there's enough, yeah.
Can I just ask a question specific to the answer that was given to us around the documentation being complete for the public to see? So that 106 million that's been reduced out of the budget, has that been then put into the long-term financial plan and uploaded online? Is that what was put out this week? So the answer was given that the documentation needed to be complete for us to make a decision, and was that put out this week?
So as per your resolution, what's proposed is that what was sent out last week will be incorporated into the documentation. What was sent out last week has been publicly available since the time it was made available to councillors. So the comprehensive suite of information has been public now for the relevant time frame. We'll make the necessary changes before public exhibition commences.
Through you, Madam Mayor, just to add to that, whilst we will update those documents, the impacts on the long-term financial plan document probably are not going to be as significant as you might think for a $106 million deferral. Of the items that are contained in there, The only place that capital program appears on the income statement is in our capital grants. So the capital grants lines will reduce and defer, but you won't see a significant change on them. On the balance sheet, it changes one type of asset into another type of asset. Cash turns into an asset, so there won't be a substantial impact on the balance sheet. There'll be a more substantial impact on cash flow, but at this point in time, that'll be deferring some of that spending into next year. Future versions of the long-term financial plan might have more detail in them. So whilst it sounds like a very large sum of money, the actual impact that it makes on that document is relatively contained.
And can I just make a comment on that then? I would have loved, I read the council papers on Thursday night last week and made my decision that I wasn't happy with what was there. And I do commend what's been proposed from CEO Metal. But I would have really liked the whole community to see that, because if anyone else read it before that change happened, they probably formulated their decision. They're not going to go back to it because there's a lot of information in there, but that is the biggest change we've seen in a budget from a council CEO in my time here, and probably in the last 10 years that I've seen this council operate. So I do commend a change of direction. But yeah, I do like the fact that the community is fully informed on the full outcome of what the change in direction looks like. So
Thank you, Councillor Pakes. We don't have the motion in front of us. I just want to wait. I just need to clear up with stuff.
do you accept the
The thing is, it's not what we need. We need motion.
Councillors, we're just having some technical issues at the moment, and that will mean that we can't have the motion in front of us on screen. Are you happy to proceed without the motion in front of you at the moment? So we can keep going and we're in the middle of Councillor White's proposed amendment. She had a few questions. I can see Councillor Coburn wants to speak. Councillor White, would you like to clear up your amendment, and we can see if Councillor Bain is willing to accept that? So
I can.
did you send it to me as well?
No, but I can. So then, okay, yep. Oops. Yes, I just sent it. Sorry. Yeah, that council provide a comprehensive presentation on the long-term financial plan, the operating plan, and the additional capital program for the community that is live streamed and recorded within the next 28 days. Or it doesn't have to have the days on it, but I guess before June. So you can just drop off the 28 days.
As part of the public exhibition.
Okay, yep. Yeah.
So, Councillor Bain, the amendment is that council provide a comprehensive presentation on the long-term financial plan, the operating plan, and additional capital program for the community that is live streamed as part of the public exhibition process, which would be a 0.6 to the motion that's in front of you.
Yeah, I'm happy to accept that amendment.
Well, that is now the motion.
That's 0.6, Madam Mayor.
Yes, and that would be 0.6 to the motion. I think you're satisfied you've spoken to it. We've been over that. So would you like to ask your questions now?
I do. I'm going to limit my questions for a change. Just on the operating plan and in the papers, it's really good to see an explanation around the impact of the natural disasters. It's $3.6 million worth of works. And I've been banging on this a long time, is that I want to see a category in column F that says disaster recovery, as it will really highlight the impact of successive natural disasters on council's business. Why can a category on natural disasters not be added to column F so people can clearly see? Yeah, that's right. That's a justification. Why can't a category in column F be added, natural disasters?
Mr. Thorpe.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. It's predominantly a consideration as to how much real estate we have in the report on each of those pages. So you'll note that there is a section in there that talks about the natural disaster works. It only is a handful of projects through the entire plan that are natural disaster works. And therefore, we would have a column that says no for the majority of the document and yes on just a few lines. Instead, we pulled those projects out and just called them out individually on their own page.
Sorry, I didn't mean an extra column. I mean in the categories where you've got multi-year, annual program, new project is just another filtered category.
And through you, Madam Mayor, we've essentially done that. I could pull up the page number. So there is a listing of the works which are natural disaster works in the plan separately. We couldn't do it instead of being multi-year or not because they are still multi-year projects and need to be put in that category for our internal reporting and planning purposes. I'll just turn myself to the plan, but there is a page in the operational plan that calls out the specific natural disaster.
No problem. I believe you. So just to confirm my understanding and question, the natural disaster impact is, the natural disaster cost and the impact is in that operating plan for the community and me to clearly see. If we could, yeah.
Yeah, through Madam Mayor, yes. So there is a page on that particular subject.
Thank you very much. It's got a couple of questions, and I will limit these ones on the capital table, the capital additional that you sent out. Yeah. I just want to ask some questions around like a risk and decision, a risk process for putting that list together. What is the risk assessment? Has risk assessment being assessed for not delivering some of those projects, such as financial, legal, service delivery, reputation? Some are environmental. Like, did you go through a risk assessment process to come up with that list and sort of consider that they all are low risk or lowish risk?
Mr. Medal.
Thank you. So the works are still going to be delivered and many of them will still commence in 26, 27. The key risk that we considered was delivery risk. And that is what our level of comfort on what we can deliver against the original timeframe, given those current conditions, the headwinds that we're facing. So I think it's worth noting that despite the comments that we were all well aware of the current conflict, the original plan was drafted in November and worked through all the way through to QBR3, which finished on Thursday. So yeah, this is very contemporary and understanding the things that we're aware of today and trying to manage those risks in this year's delivery program, the impact of anything that flows over from this year into next year, the impact of natural disasters. The other things that we were thinking of when we went through this process was around the risk to our reputation, our risk to grant funding, but these become areas that we can mitigate where we're not committed to actually deliver something by a particular date, or we can have negotiations with grant funders. And as members will probably be well aware, the landscape changed again yesterday with the Fair Work Commission determination, and we're not at the end of the chain where we get grant funding, but we are at the end of the chain for a lot of other haulage contracts and so on. So it's still a movable feast, but we've done the best we can in the time available to manage the risk, Councillor.
Okay, that sort of alludes to that drops out a couple of other questions, but I just wanted to confirm what you said there. So for those deferred, it's just weird. For those deferred projects, are there any contractual implications for not delivering? Like, is there so there won't be slap on the wrist or money being taken away if they're not delivered, no funding contractual obligations?
No.
Cool. And I guess, and the other one is around, and I remember this being pushed into my head from the Craig Milburn days of and Steve days, if we don't do them now, the cost will escalate. So yeah, given that deferral typically does result in cost escalation, has council or have you been able to consider the likely cost increase to deliver those projects in the future years?
Yes, absolutely. And interestingly, I think my colleagues have spoken to this, but for some projects, where we're going out to start new work, some of those contractors are saying, how about we put a skeleton crew on and just hold the site for a period of time while we wait for costs to come back down to a more normal level? Yeah, we've seen gate prices for fuel drop considerably over the last couple of weeks. So there is some good news. For other things, we know there's just going to be bad news for an extended period of time. Yeah, we're waiting months, if not years, for a specific type of liner that we use in some of our water treatment facilities. So there are delays and there will be cost escalations. That's what this 106 million does. It gives us the wiggle room to be able to manage that and to buy us a bit of time to understand what we can afford to do next year if $100 million worth of investment only buys us $80 million at today's prices.
That's good. That gives me confidence in that answer as well. So I guess the final question in that then is there a risk that deferral now results in those projects becoming undeliverable in future years due to ongoing financial constraints? Or have you sort of put, yeah, that's the question.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, there is always that risk. We're preparing for the worst and planning for the best outcome so that we can deliver everything that's in the current operating plan. It would not surprise me if the conflict escalates, that we're having a very different conversation in 6 months, a year's time about what council can afford to do and what our priorities are. But that will be a collaborative process with you. It won't be something that's done to you. We'll make sure that you're driving that strategic part of the process.
I don't want to take up any more time, but can you make sure in that briefing that we just know, the presentation, that you sort of really dig deep into those issues and those questions that I asked? That would be helpful, please.
Thank you, Councillor Wyatt. Councillor Coburn.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I think for real clarity for the community, because I think there's a lot of uncertainty, I think what I would like to get an answer on is that what council are being asked to approve is the full $169 million in the capital works program.
No, you're being asked to determine what you have in the OP as amended by Friday's correspondence.
Okay, so we're reducing it back down to just over 60. Okay, thank you. I had asked for an updated look at what that new operational plan would look like, so it's clearer for me. I am not a forensic accountant. I don't have the time or the resources to be doing that work. So in light of that, is the intention of council still to borrow the $65 million?
Through you, Madam Mayor. The $65 million is left within the plan, as I spoke about earlier. The plan we put forward is the plan that we believe that we can deliver under the current circumstances in the current context that we find ourselves in. But we do wish to leave ourselves the ability to deliver faster if circumstances allow and bring that back in. It is necessary to make sure that we have sufficient liquidity at year end. So we won't draw down on any of those borrowings, A, without a resolution of council, but B, unless it's necessary in order to make sure we've got sufficient unrestricted cash available. But they will remain in the program because we can't take out borrowings which aren't in the program. So we need to leave ourselves that room to be able to deliver those projects if we can bring those timetables forward.
Okay, so in the best case scenario that we manage to be able to deliver, and we're looking at drawing down that, can you just frame up for me, particularly in light of the general fund, because that's where we know the major financial problems in the deficit lie, with the current rate of interest payments? First of all, the first question is, are those loans fixed at a fixed interest rate and for a fixed term?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, those loans are fixed with a fixed rate and fixed term.
So the second question to that then is, we currently have interest repayments that we are already contracted to make. What will be the impact of the $30 million, particularly on the general fund, in the addition of those interest payments, in light of the fact that that cash flow is one of the highest indicators of issues around the general fund. Where's the capacity without having more special rate variations to be able to pay that? For example, if we're currently sitting at $2 million out of the general fund in interest payments, and that ramps up to $5 million or $4 million in interest payment, that represents $2 million of fixed costs that's going to have to come out of that fund.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. So you asked a number of questions there, and I'm just finding the right pages to direct you to. If you have a look at the income statement for the general fund in the long-term financial plan, you'll see year by year what the proposed borrowing costs are there. So assuming that we took out the full amount of the borrowings that are forecast, you'll be able to see the impact on borrowing costs there. The inverse to that is, though, every year in which we don't do works on renewing assets, those works get more expensive to do. And as we're currently seeing, generally at a rate which is higher than the rate of the interest rate. And furthermore, if we don't do them, and partly sort of the situation we see today in some asset categories, we just simply have a backlog that is so large that we cannot tackle it. So if we don't, there's an intergenerational equity question there, because whenever we don't renew an asset which needs renewing and defer renewing that asset to a later date, we're effectively borrowing money from our children and having them pay the interest on that. It's intangible. It doesn't get shown on our balance sheet anywhere, but effectively it is the same as taking out a loan from a future generation and having them pay that down. And that's why we have a look at what our borrowing capacity is, what our backlog is, and we have a very fine tightrope to walk to make sure that we do just the right amount of that backlog asset renewal. And that's what the special rate variation was all about. All of that money was tagged for addressing that backlog. Because we weren't granted all of it by IPART, and then we haven't taken all of it in the past, we're already not addressing the backlog at the rate that we planned on addressing it at. So we're constrained there. And therefore we set the amount of the borrowings, like I said, to be sensible within our borrowing capacity, within our capacity to repay it, but also assessed against the future risk of those works costing more to do in the future and intergenerational equity.
Thank you. In light of the deferrals that we're talking about, I have to look back at the carry forwards or the carryover, the carry forwards from previous years. And I note that back in 23-24, it was something like 9 million. Last year's end of year, it was another 11 million that was carried forward again. We've also had those quarterly budget review reports where in the first and second quarter so far, Council has been asked to reduce funds consistently. For me, that raises a bit of a red flag around the capacity of Council to be able to deliver the quantity of work that we're committed to. And I think, you know, I believe the CEO has clearly red flagged that as being an issue. So in the context that I can understand, not being an accountant, I would like to understand how moving forward, when we're parking a lot of these things, you talked about that you've done risk mitigation. Is that capital program really realistic? Is it going to be achievable, or are we going to consistently have this process where we're constantly having to do quarterly reviews, where we're reducing that delivery program, and that at the end of the financial year we find ourselves again looking at a massive rollover into the following year?
So in answer to your question, yes, there will continue to be quarterly budget reviews, and that's their whole purpose, is to enable us to profile and re-profile projects depending on when they find headwinds, or like we have done with the Willawarrin water treatment plant, that no longer will appear in next year's budget. As you've said, you know, the capacity of this organisation was its biggest risk going into this budget with the unforeseen circumstances ahead of us. That's why we've reduced that down. In terms of how we recover that, I think that's about growing the capacity of the council and growing the capacity of the Shire, because this year our team are going to deliver their capital program internally. We'll be in the high 90% of capital delivery. Those bigger, lumpier projects that we put out to contractors are the ones that are lagging behind. They're not going to hit that same completion rate. So there will continue to be that ice tray effect that Mr. Douglas refers to, where projects with the best will in the world hope to be delivered by the 30th of June, but may not be finished till August. So that's why the Local Government Act provides us with those quarterly reviews. This budget resets us, lets us take stock. And if we have a fair win next year, I would love to come back to this council and ask for more money for heavy patching or for anything else that we think we can take forward. But I think at the moment we need to take stock and position ourselves to spring forward, not just bounce back, spring forward into the future. And that is about growing our capacity and growing the capacity in the valley.
One last question.
Yep. You're making very broad statements on top of your question, so just make sure you're very.
I'm trying to be
specific.
concise. I think they're of high value to me. So, grant funding. Looking at the current grants list that we have, has that been strategically reviewed by the council, particularly those ones that are in that deferred situation from year to year? And are they all still valid and deliverable?
Can I ask you to be more specific? Is there an example that you could help me with, Councillor?
Toos Road, for example.
I don't believe that one's grant. I think that's disaster recovery, which I guess is a grant, but it was, sorry, Mr. Metal, someone else.
Thank you. Yeah. So this is one of those lumpy external projects that we've proceeded with disaster recovery funding. There's been so much toing and froing on the geotechnics, as members were aware on site. We've had a report done. The residents didn't like the report, so they asked for another one. We got that done. We got them peer reviewed. People still weren't happy. So these things happen with those big projects. But that one in particular, is wholly externally funded. The funding will take as long as it takes to be expended, and it's not one that I feel is at risk. Whether it offers value for money is a whole different question. But most of those have been through a process where we've looked at them in terms of the delivery capability and the risk they pose to council. That one's an outsourced one, so it's not so significant to our delivery capability.
I guess a little bit of clarification for me around that is in light of the blowout in costs. I think that's what I was relating to, because obviously when council are applying for grants, it's specifically tied to a strategic program. And my understanding is that will be stringently addressed through the quarterly budget reviews to make sure that they are still deliverable.
That's correct. And also now I understand a bit more about what you were trying to get to. That question has been asked specifically of Mr. Reeves, who handles our program. So for disaster recovery works, we have to set a top level. So the question's been asked, are any of our current works that are disaster recovery funded approaching the top level? And none of them are. So there's still headroom between costs of doing the work today and what the top line that RA will pay us for those works.
Just one more question in regard to that. So if the rate funds are set at a certain amount, and if it's a co-contribution from council, I think that is a great concern for myself and the community about whether that cost to the community will blow out disproportionately to the original agreement within the grant funding. Is that a correct approach?
So for some grant streams, it might be that there will be cost escalation, but that's subject to negotiation between the grantee and the grantor. And so trying to understand the impacts of today's imposition of the Fair Work Commission, they're now liable for any increase in haulage costs, not us. So how do we pass that on? How do we manage those bits of the process? So I think you've got a series of grants related to natural disasters, which are one bucket. Then you've got other buckets like the Matty's Flat development. I can understand your concerns that If that development suddenly blew out from what it is now to an extra $1 million, then council would be expected to wear that unless there was a successful negotiation between the grantee and the grantor.
Thank you.
I think one of the other risks was what you would have seen was the problem maximum flood level, which changed some of our grants down at Verge Street there. That was probably one of the worst things that I've seen happen to this council in terms of grant projects. You have questions, Councillor Bain? Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 2 quick questions. Firstly, are we still borrowing from T Corp at that lower interest rate?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the previous borrowings we did last year were through T Corp. We will seek to assess T Corp as one of our options again, provided we continue to meet their borrowing criteria and they're happy to lend to us. But we will be comparing them against market rates. So we can't say until we look to draw down loans and see what the rates are at the time, whether or not they would be placed with T Corp or someone else. But they're definitely, our preference is to borrow from them at preferential rates where we can.
Fantastic, thank you. Second question is, while I understand that projects like Tozer Road and the foreshore stabilisation aren't immediate costs on council because they're grant funded, there is the ongoing cost of depreciation for those. Is that correct?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, definitely where we receive large capital grants, that we have ongoing commitments to depreciation. In many cases, if they're replacing an existing asset or so on, we already have depreciation for that asset, and that asset value will have been indexed. So the depreciation we incur is only the betterment or the extra or the new asset component. In other cases where they're entirely new assets, then yes, we have an ongoing depreciation liability on that asset.
So like the Tozer Road Bridge and the foreshore stabilisation project are new assets, so they're not betterment of anything previous. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, they are both new assets.
Councillor Lawrence.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I just had a question about the amount with the 169 million in capital works. Has council delivered that extent of projects in the past?
No, council hasn't. The revised list, which takes out the 106 million, is consistent with what has been delivered in recent years. And part of that significant difference is some of the projects are of a different scope and scale. The water projects are, intergenerational projects and investment that are much more significant than just a resealing or refurbishment of a road.
Councillor Pakes.
12 months ago, I think I said to you, Andrew, around capacity to deliver, and you've given it 12 months for council to show what's capacity to deliver. Can you make a comment now on the savings and so on that are highlighted? Do you think the savings measures in the previous have got us to this point, or do you think we should have gone harder earlier? I know you said you're going to go for the CapEx at the moment, capital expenditure at the moment, the 106 million, but perhaps we could have looked at the operational earlier. What do you think? Thoughts there? Like, can you quantify what do you think you'll get out of the operational fund to make changes to go forward? Because we've been asking for a while, and I appreciate you doing the work, but it is a tectonic change from what we've received in the past as a councillors, and I do commend it. Thank God, because I think that's what I became a councillor for, is to make a difference in my community, and I think the community will be on board noticing that you have made a change in the leadership style and direction. So, yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think if I'd been in my predecessor seats, I would have really loved council to go full on with the SRV and to provide the certainty last year so that then someone could get stuck into the operating plan straight away. Coming in new, I feel that you employed me to make some difficult decisions, and I've tried to listen and learn to try and work out where those decisions can be done that have the least pain for the people inside this organisation, but more importantly, the people we serve outside the organisation. So I'm confident that if we have just a steady year, that gap will close significantly, if not run into a small surplus in 27, 28. It is about having that certainty this year about how big the target is, because it's much easier to encourage people towards a clear goal. And I think there's just been a bit of ambiguity internally about just how big the gap is and who's going to do the leading on that, because we have had a period where there's not been a clear direction of council to say, go and do this. And that's what I'm hoping we'll get today. We'll get a clear direction that here's your budget, here's what we're going to test with the community. If this is it, then we move forward and we set ourselves up for success. We then make the next step over those 12 months, and I'll update you as we go through the year on how that's progressing. I'm really confident in the team here, the collaboration and the willingness to turn that corner. And I'm not sure that was there previously in terms of having the vision and the direction that was required. That's why we've done what we've done. My predecessors were dealing with a very different environment, very different history, and a very different executive team. You've got 4 people on the executive now who are acting as one. We want the best for this organisation and the best for the communities we serve.
Just through you, Madam Mayor, in addition to that, the start of your question was, can we quantify it? On page 16 of the long-term financial plan, there is a target of $4 million in operational savings for next year. I'm confident at this point in time that we have the ability to find that in our future plans.
And I'll probably ask a question directly to that. Is that is double what the is that double what we did? This year's been only 147 or something like that. It's been quite a small amount. And the year before that was it 1.7 or something like that?
Yeah, the year before that was, through you, Madam Mayor, the year before that is the number which is in the report. Yeah, it's 2.2 off the top of my head. It might be 1.9 after you pull out.
So it's double, but it's double those two numbers together.
Yeah, I was going to say. So yes, this year has been a quiet year, as you point out, and I think that is demonstrating the fact that the low-hanging fruit, the easy-to-find savings have all been made at this point in time. There is much more challenging work in front of us to find the additional $4 million, and that's one of the reasons why it'll take some time. There's some really long and difficult pieces of work that we need to do in doing that, particularly around items like depreciation. It will simply take some time to do that work. But as I said, I remain confident that we will be able to find the savings that we're targeting, provided that we do the hard work and make the difficult decisions along the way.
Thank you. Councillors, do we have any debate on this item? Councillor Bain, would you like to close debate?
I did, sorry.
Oh. Councillor White?
Can I?
Yep.
I just wanted to speak for, and it won't be 5 minutes. But I mean, it won't be 5 minutes. I'm speaking for. I made a lot of comments on the operational plan, and I thank the team for your team for doing that work and giving us that opportunity. And I made a lot of comments around providing clarity on the delivery and the financial transparency, because it was and still is a little difficult to clearly see what's actually being delivered in 26, 27, like what the tangible outputs are, what specific projects are being funded, and where the work is absorbed into BAU operations. And so it'd be helpful to understand what the true cost is, and where there is no especially where there's no discrete project allocation. For me, without that level of detail, challenging to assess the value and prioritise effectively. So I look forward to a briefing. For me, it's also about risk management, and risk is not just about the financial risk, but it is about the risk of doing or not doing work on the safety environment, all sorts of things. And that, it's about focusing our activities or investment where that risk is the highest and the likely consequences are significant, and scaling back on works that are lower risks, and maybe less investment in assets that are of lower risk and can't be justified in an asset management perspective. I note Councillor Bain's comments about what to remove. That's pretty hard to figure. That's very hard to figure out. And I want to reiterate what I said and he said earlier that the whole funding system for local government in this country and in this state is broken. 2 inquiries have sort of indicated that. The Councillor Bain mentioned that $9 million financial assistance grants for this council, which is 0.5%. If it was 1%, that could be $18 million, which could match, surprise, surprise, the amount of the deficit that we have. That could fix it straight up. And the other one is that the role of local government has significantly expanded over time, and the expansion hasn't matched the funding increases. So there's less money, more responsibilities, bigger infrastructure backlog, and cost shifting. And I'm glad that you've highlighted the disaster recovery, given the frequency and impact of successive natural disasters on this council area. It's really critical that we identify and quantify what that work is so we can see the impact on that disasters, measure it. Financial sustainability, the staff operating the resources, and then ultimately the performance, because that for me, that's the big ticket item that is driving the performance, what is being perceived as not performing because of all these natural disasters. So we shouldn't be masking those. So I'm glad to see that there. And adding that category, it does do that. It can demonstrate what the scale of the resources is being diverted into those recovery efforts. So I'm glad to see that. Just want to make a comment about the Code of Meeting Practice. Clause 3.31 prohibits councillor briefings for items that are on the business paper. And the idea is to prevent closed door meetings being held before the meeting. 100% agree. That's good. We don't want to do that because that's not open and transparent. But how it's being interpreted for me is a little bit of a worry. I'm not sure what this new position has been adopted looks like for the whole of New South Wales. But to me, it looks like the prohibition is that we don't get a briefing on any issue at any time or anything that is likely to be on the agenda, on a business agenda. And the code state the intent of that clause in the code is that we adhere to Chapter 4 of the Local Government Act, which requires council to conduct its business openly and transparently. I really believe we need to define what that means for this council, because prior to the new code and in previous terms, for those of us who were in previous terms, we had really comprehensive briefings on these plans, really comprehensive. They really aided in our understanding, my understanding. This new code and or its interpretation of it is inhibiting well-informed decisions and inhibiting well-informed good decision making. And I would even further to say that it is actually discriminating against councillors, those who learn best with complex reports and words and have hours and hours to really look at those reports. It's favouring that. The teacher in the room here, adult learning has quite different ways of adult learning. So it's discriminating against those that learn and absorb information in different ways by not having that the briefing, whatever you want to call it. And I'm not sure that's the intent of or is it the intent of the Code of Meeting Practice to discriminate against those to keep us in the dark? Because it's not working. But I thank the staff for the report. Happy for this to go forward. Thank you for accepting my amendment.
You're 5 seconds short of 5 minutes. Is there any further debate?
Can I move that we put the motion?
Is there any speakers against the motion?
I'll speak against.
Oh, well, if we have a speaker against, Councillor Pakes.
Oh, and I want to tell you all in this room, I read this document on Thursday night, and I didn't want to form my position on Thursday night. I wanted to come to this room, and I was entering the room at that point. I was going to find it very difficult to vote for this motion. And because I'm speaking against it doesn't mean I won't vote for it. It's the point that the position's been explained by the CEO now, that to me, in my mind, I can make a decision that is reasonably informed. I will say the reason I am speaking against is because those updated documents weren't published with the updated figures for the long-term financial plan, etc. That's the reason I'm speaking against, because I believe we should have had those documents out. And I accept CEO Meddle's explanation of that. I actually think it shows total responsibility to say, hey, we need to make a change. And I sat in this room last year, probably in the same position, and said exactly that. We need to do something different. And we didn't do anything different last year. We'll give it an opportunity to to see how we went, and we are now making changes, which is good. So I commend. I'm not going to take them full time. I'm going to commend Andrew on getting us to a position. I can't give you 100%. I wasn't totally happy last week, and I think the community weren't totally happy last week. But I think hearing your explanation today, hearing you answer the questions today, I was prepared to go to the meeting and say, hey, let's adjourn this and get the full information. But I think you've been very open and transparent in the direction and the unity of the executive leadership team to make positive steps forward. I am also I'm uncomfortable with increasing rates by 10.7%, but I also have spoken to multiple businesses this week and said, hey, what are you doing? Like, where are you at in this position? What are you doing in your organisation? And they have to make changes, which is what you've described. They have to make changes to make their organisations more streamlined. That doesn't mean you don't put your costs up. Your prices up. That's happening also. I know it in my own business, and I've spoken to multiple businesses about exactly the same thing. Am I comfortable with it? No, I'm not, but it's definitely a sign of the times. I'm not comfortable with it, but it's definitely a sign of the times. So I'm speaking against to allow Councillor Lawrence also to speak. So that's it.
Oh, thanks. Can I speak, Madam Mayor?
You can speak for. Yeah. It's just yep.
Thanks so much, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Pakes, for letting me have some time. Firstly, I just want to thank the staff for putting this report together, and obviously just want to make it very clear on the decision that we're making today and what we're not. We are not approving a final budget. We are not locking in borrowings. We are not committing to deliver 169 million in capital works next financial year. We are deciding on is whether we comply with our legislative obligation in place draft integrated planning documents on public exhibition and give our community the opportunity to generally engage with the difficult choices ahead. I understand the concerns being raised in the chamber. They are real and legitimate. It is a case of sometimes being torn between council and community. There is frustration about capital works carrying over year after year. There's concern about debt levels. There's a concern about projects being announced but delayed and put on hold. What is different this time, and what I think it's important that we take this suite of documents, does not pretend that these don't exist. As Mr. Medal mentioned in his speech, he believes it is what our community needs. He spoke about certainty and clear direction and success. I believe we need to trust him. When he mentioned he is confident in the team, he has been making difficult decisions on the current circumstances we are dealt with. Overall, he mentioned growing capacity of our council and the Shire, which is positive. The draft long-term financial plan clearly states that the 169 million capital works program is not deliverable and will not be reprofilled. Council have not delivered this much before, and in the trying times, that honestly matters. The documents openly state that maintaining current service levels without change is not financially sustainable. That transparency matters. That is where council must be strong, and the report commits to bringing back in June a reduced achievable capital program for council to actually decide on. Overall, it is going to be a difficult decisions ahead, and I hope community can take the time to educate themselves, and if they need support, please reach out, as it will give us the decisions to make. It will give us the ability to make informed decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Is Councillor Bain, would you like to close debate?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think, as has been pointed out recently, it's important that we look at data, and I'd like to draw people's attention to page 660 of the business papers, where we're looking at the performance of council in comparison to the Office of Local Government benchmarks. And we are failing to meet benchmarks on a number of issues. One is the own source revenue, and that's been clearly explained many times because we've got such a big grant funding because of natural disasters. Our own source revenue is smaller as a part of the pie. The infrastructure backlog should be, according to the Office of Local Government, should be less than 2%, and we're looking at the moment 6.5%, so we need to do some improvement there. That's what the point of the SRV was. Asset maintenance ratio, is sitting around 94.47, should be greater than 100% to be renewing our assets. Again, that's part of why we need the SRV. I would really like to have a look at point out to people the asset renewal ratio, which has gone over the last, from 2023 was 40%, 60%, 159% in 2025, and exceeding the Office of Local Government benchmark. So you can see in those numbers are telling us that we are making significant steps in the right direction. The final point I want to make is that there is concern over and I understand the concern over the level of borrowing. However, looking at the peak of the borrowing being around 2035-36 to the staggering 131 million, if we consider that as and I know this isn't a standard measurement for council, but if we look at it to a debt equity ratio, it's around about 11 to 12%. And in terms of what is considered responsible borrowing from in the local government and public sector, they're looking around 50% of a debt to equity ratio. So I believe that the level of borrowing, while it seems very large, we are a very large organisation with a $1.5 billion asset equity base. So I commend the work that council have done, and I commend this to all my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bain. I'll now put the motion. Is there any dissent? There is no dissent. The motion is carried. We'll now move to item 11.3, 27 and 29 Livingstone Street, South West Rocks. Do we have a mover on that one? Councillor Coburn, seconded. Councillor Selby. Councillor Coburn, would you like to open debate?
Yes. Firstly, I'd like to note that there has been some work that has started on that particular project. And I guess this is where, before we proceed, I would like further clarification from the CEO around this, whether this is still a relevant discussion to be having, and whether the actions by the workers actually meet the criteria that the council has asked them to. I think that's one of the most important issues for the community. It's been a long time coming, and it's good to see the work started. But I went down there and I had a look at the work that was actually being done, and I just want to confirm, firstly, that it has met the conditions of supplying council with a works program, that council is satisfied, and that particularly the dangers and considerations about the removal of asbestos in particular has been covered in a plan that has come to council.
Thank you. Yes, so council's had the plan for some time. We've been waiting on Safe Work to approve the asbestos elements. So the reason why this is still before you is because the works to demolish have not been completed, and they have not been completed in accordance with what we were seeking. Because of that, belt and braces on this one, I still need to be able to take compliance action and to complete the work should the owner fail to do so. So that's why I'm just seeking to have that in my back pocket, that if the works are not completed as we require, that we will go in and finish those works and then recover the cost from the sale of the land.
Amazing. Is there any further discussion on this item?
Just a question.
Councillor Salden, Councillor Wyatt.
Just a question, Madam Mayor. As you remember, the history behind these houses was the owner at one stage wanted to build units there. Council and he couldn't get along with the height restrictions, and he pulled the plug. And the question is, has he any further desire to build there? Are we aware of?
My understanding is that the demolition will clear the way for a new application.
Thank you.
Councillor Wyatt.
Yeah, that's good clarification that you provided, because I was definitely leaning on the dissenting because to me, it looks like a backup plan in case he doesn't, or in case they don't spend the money, then ratepayers will be expected to do that. That's what it looks like to me. Is it a backup plan if the property owner doesn't do the work and the spend of 300 is the least expensive option for council should the property owner doesn't do the work?
Yes, that's correct. This is absolutely a backup plan. There has been some willingness because of the reasons Councillor Saul outlined. The developer of this site has been trying to get rid of these heritage properties and redevelop that site. The community have been pushing council to make that happen. That is now happening. We're in the luxurious position as a council in this particular development that the land will be worth more than the cost of the work, so we're not likely to be out of pocket. But I do need a backup plan should the developer stop work halfway through.
Is there any further discussion?
Just one other. So you mentioned that you can. So it's not just giving away what's backup plan, but how do you can recover if the person doesn't comply? You can recover through the sale of the property. And at this stage, this person isn't being recalcitrant; they're just finding it difficult for all the dots to line up.
They've taken their time to get to this point. They've required an order to be served on them. And that helps us. That's the big stick that's been needed to get them over the line. They were given a deadline to undertake the works because of a delay with safe work. That has slipped a couple of weeks, but work is now underway.
Thank you. And just finally, so ultimately, though, the liability of those issues on that property, the graffiti, the safety, the asbestos, the public safety, that liability sits with the property owner. Whether or not they comply, it still sits with the property owner. So council's not therefore in a position to say, well, we'll have to do it, because they won't. The liability firmly sits with that person still.
Yes, what this report does is give me the power to spend the money to ensure that the order is fully complied with, and then to recover that money should we have to spend it. The responsibility for the site security, for any antisocial behaviour and so on that site rests solely with the landowner.
Councillor Selby.
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you for what you've put together here with this. It's an issue that I've been following with business owners that adjacent to those properties. They've had vermin coming into their properties, the whole lot, and it was just unacceptable.
Before you go and leave.
And
Wayne, we can hear you. Councillor Selby.
Yeah, and no, I'd just like to say thank you for putting this together and finally getting the issue sorted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Selby. Councillor Coburn.
Yeah, you just mentioned it, and I'd like clarification around the fact that were those properties heritage listed properties? You did say that they were heritage properties.
My understanding is that they were heritage property or are heritage properties.
So in that context, can I ask what other financial burden should fall on the owner in regard to that? Is there something around, I'm not familiar with heritage law, but to me that seems like a massive breach around the preservation of heritage buildings. Can I get clarification on that from you, Mr.
Yep, so there are a number of buildings across the Shire that are in less than satisfactory condition because they're heritage and the cost of works are significant for the landholders. It's a game that is regularly played by developers who have such properties. The powers, depending on the level of heritage, vary, but pretty much for the lowest levels of heritage, which I think these were, the powers are pretty much toothless.
There's no further discussion on this one. Would you like to close debate, Councillor Coburn?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Look, I think this is a proactive stance that Council's taking in regards to this. I know it is an issue around public safety. I am very disappointed to hear about that heritage issue. I think that's really falls on the owner and their inability to consider that in what they've done. But moving forward, it needs to be cleaned up. And hopefully when the developer does make an application moving forward, it will be something that will be reasonable and within our CLEP and our DCP, and we'll have a good outcome for South West Rocks. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coburn. I'll now put the motion. Is there any dissent? There is no dissent. We now move to item 12.1 as we've changed our order of business, which is notice of motion, savings and efficiencies following implementation of the special rate variation. Councillor Wyatt, would you like to move? Do you have a seconder? Councillor Coburn, would you like to open debate? Councillor Wyatt.
Yeah, thank you. It's a little odd seeing things that's there, so I'll just shorten what I was going to say, but this notice of motion is just about accountability and transparency following the implementation of the special rate variation in July 2024. We now have an obligation, not just to ourselves as the governing body, to our community, to clearly demonstrate whether it's delivering what it promised. And the intention of my NOM is to bring together in a single point of reference the information we as in the council body, not the council staff, is to bring together the information that we need to properly assess productivity savings, cost containment, operational efficiencies, and compliance with the conditions set out in IPART. And there's only 4 of us at the table here that were part of that process. At the moment, the information is fragmented and makes it difficult to answer some really basic questions, which, in my belief, the 9 of us need to be satisfied with before we make any further decisions about anything to do with finances. And that is, are we achieving what the saving, are we as in the council achieving the savings we said we would? Are we improving our financial position? And are we meeting the commitments tied to the rate increase? So the intention was to be addressed to require clear evidence-based report, not general statements, but quantified outcomes, dollar values, transparent account of what was delivered. It calls on those comparative analyses between the years that the SRV has been implemented. And it's critical because without a comparison over time, we can't measure improvement or decline, if whatever the case may be. And as councillors, we need to be clear about the compliance obligations. IPART approved a reduced SRV and placed conditions on council, including how the additional revenue is to be used and the requirement for ongoing reporting through to 2020-31. So this NOM intended to ensure that us as the governing body have the visibility on that compliance, and we can confidentially meet our requirements under the Local Government Act as councillors. It's important to remember that that context in 2023, we were facing a financial challenges with projected deficits of, well, I recall it was $112 million the first time we had the conversation with General Manager Milburn. And if you read the document there that I've written, you can see the changes over time and where we've landed. And the SRV was approved as part of the solution, but it wasn't a blank check. IPART made it very clear that council must continue to pursue productivity improvements, manage costs, and consider the impact on the community that's already had with a limited capacity to pay. So this is not about revisiting the SRV decision. It's about demonstrating that whether or not it's working, whether we are delivering on the commitments made to our community. And for us as councillors, it provides us a single consolidated evidence-based report to guide our informed decision making, particularly when we consider long-term financial plan, the fees and charges, and the making of the rates. And if we're asking our community to pay more, then we must be able to clearly show what has been achieved, what has been approved, and where we're heading. And as councillors, we need to be confident in that decision and the information that we have to make that decision. And it also speaks directly to that code of meeting practice I mentioned before about 3.3.1, that we need that around the council need to conduct its business openly and transparently. And also the Local Government Act requires that we conduct our business openly and transparently. Council has already agreed to that. And I thank Mr. Medal and Mr. Thorogood and the team for being proactive and presenting this information. And I look forward to hearing from staff and more so from the councillors on your thoughts on what is before us in 11.8.
Thank you, Councillor Wyatt. I commend you for bringing this notice of motion. I think it's raised a really good report that's really timely. In the interest of time, would councillors be happy for us to put the motion and then move to item 11.8, just given the topic that she's wanted to discuss is in item 11.8. I think we happy for that.
I just have one question, if it's okay, probably to the CEO. Is this something that might be a recurring report for councillors to make decisions at this time of year going forward? Do you see a benefit of that?
No, I don't. Simply because you have all this information already. It's provided in other places. What I do see is a value to the community that we've put it all in one place for them. So I can see a clear benefit of that. And as Mr. Pearson's asked for, you have the one pager, which simplifies it further. But yeah, it required a bit of work to get it into this format, but all of that information was available if you knew where to look, and that's the challenge.
So if we're all amenable, we'll put the motion, because everything we're going to discuss is in item 11.8. Is that okay, Councillor Wyatt? I'll now put the motion. Is there any dissent? There is no dissent. The motion is carried. We'll now move to item 11.8, which is savings and efficiencies following the implementation of the special rate variation as a result of Councillor Wyatt's motion. Who would like to move 11.8? Councillor Wyatt, Councillor Bain seconded. Councillor Wyatt, would you like to open debate?
Yep, thank you. Well, firstly, I want to acknowledge the work that has gone into this report. It's a very positive, proactive step, and I appreciate the effort in bringing it forward now, actually. I mean, my intent was to sort of give you a couple of months, but thanks for doing it now. There's one key point that I want to ask, and what does it actually mean? So for the performance ratios, these are important indicators. And IPART provides in its summary report, IPART provides a really good explanation of what they mean and how they're calculated. And I believe that councils, not I say the generic councils, have an obligation to help community and councillors understand the business of council in a more accessible way. I mean, most people simply don't have the capacity, capability, or time to interpret complex financial documents. This is something I've raised previously through my notice of motion about, council helping the community understand the rates. Same principle applies here. And I just encourage council, really strongly encourage council to develop a suite of communication tools, fact sheets, infographics, simple summaries, diagrams to explain what these metrics mean in practical terms. There's a table there. It's brilliant. What does it mean? So I was hoping for that. I also note that, this is a statement from the Auditor General report in attachment C. We get an Auditor General's presentation report, I think it's maybe every November, and those presentations are really good. And in previous years, they're really helpful for understanding that information up front. And I've not been able to locate these online, and I would really appreciate if those presentations could be made available, as they were really useful for understanding their PowerPoint presentations, and there's an associated report. I found those really useful. Just with regard to IPART, so that was part 2. That was addressing 2.1. This one's addressing 1.2, compliance with IPART SRV. So there is a section on expenditure and income in Part B of the annual report, which is mentioned there. I wonder how many. I mean, I can say that I didn't. I mean, how many of us here actually read and digested that fully? I mean, there's footnotes in that report stating what is basically in the table of this report. But I don't know what satisfied means. So, I mean, it's a great start. It's not entirely what I was hoping for. No, again, I've consistently advocated for those accessibility tools and communication. Again, I'm asking for that. I mean, in my view, council has this responsibility to help the community, bring the community along, accessibility principles, diversity and inclusion. It's all about accessibility. It's all about making information that's clear, accessible for everybody to understand. And really, I guess I'm begging you. Like, I'm at the point now, I'm begging you to provide better, clearer information for the community. Put it up on your websites. Sorry, whoever makes the website's woeful. I have to get ChatGPT or Copilot to help me search for information. It's there if I know what the search is. It's very complex. It's a good website, but it's very difficult to find the information. So I'm begging you to please do better in making a suite of communication tools for the community to use. So I have a couple of questions, but that's generally what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wyatt. Would you like to move into your questions?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So part 1.2, the status says that those items around the reporting back to IPART it says satisfied. But does satisfied mean the action has been completed, or does it mean the action has been achieved to a satisfactory standard? So is it satisfied in that it's done, or it's satisfactory achievement? And satisfactory by whom?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think in regards to these things, because they're quite concrete, those two things are probably the same thing. So, for instance, the IPART places these requirements on them. The first is the money that we get, the additional income, can only be used for the things that we propose to use it on in the application. We can't use it for something different. So that's either we did do that or we didn't do that. There's no degrees. We either used all the money for the purpose in which we said we used the money for, or we didn't. Likewise, on the other items, if there is a difference between the programs, then we need to report those. If there's differences from our long-term financial plan, we need to report those. If there's outcomes are not achieved, and the outcome that was specified in the special rate application was to apply the money to reduce our asset backlog. It was a reasonably simple outcome that we specified. It wasn't a complex program or something that requires complex reporting to be able to say whether we've done that thing or not. In the case of all these actions, they are quite sort of, I would say, crisp and tickable. We've either done them or we haven't. They're either satisfactory or they're not. There's not a volume of justification or anything like that to demonstrate that.
Second question, is council achieving the savings it committed to in its SRV application?
Sorry, can I just ask you to... Oh, sorry, I didn't catch that. Can I just ask you to repeat that?
Yeah. Is council achieving the savings it committed to in its SRV application?
The saving, I mean, I would say yes, and hence why we've said satisfied on there. We have met the requirements of the application that we put in front of IPART. The particular savings were not the outcome committed to, though, so I'd qualify that by saying the outcome that we committed to was to take that additional income and reduce our asset backlog, and that is what the income has been applied to.
It's a good answer, thank you. And third one, is council improving its financial position following the SRV, and even know that it's only partly being applied at this stage, and if not, why not?
Through you, Madam Mayor, and I was just having a conversation with Mr. Douglas about this morning, because there's really two stories to be told here. We've done some really good work, and on the whole, we're tracking a little bit better at this point in time than we anticipated we would be 2 years ago when we started this. But that's because we've had some pretty fortunate headwinds along the way. Tailwinds along the way, as well as some unfortunate headwinds. And on the whole, we're being propped up essentially by some of those fortunate outcomes. There's still some significant challenges for us moving ahead, and a lot of hard work for us to do that we spoke about earlier. So we are far from being able to say the job is done. And if you have a look at the long-term financial year, particularly the long-term financial plan, particularly those outer years, you'll see there are very significant deficits forecast in years 9 and 10, and we need to do work now to arrest that, because every dollar additional that we don't save today compounds over those 10 years. So we can't take our foot off the accelerator as far as the program goes to find those savings, because the only way we can see ourselves being in a sustainable position in those outer years is by doing the hard work now.
And the other question is council meeting the commitments tied to the rate increase?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, as I stated, we've applied the additional income to the things that we made an application to apply it to, as we're doing that. Probably the one qualification we have to that which creates us some difficulty is because we originally weren't granted the full amount of that we applied for, and then B, we haven't taken up the full amount that we were granted. We have not been able to deliver all of the program that was promised in the application. There is a funding shortfall there.
And just to wrap that up, are we achieving the savings we said we would? Are we improving our financial position, and are we meeting the commitments to the rate rise? You're saying generally yes.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I would say unequivocally yes, not generally.
Councillor Bain.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I'd like to again refer to that table on page 58 of the business paper, 58, 59 of the business papers. I understand that, you know, it's very clear either satisfied or not satisfied, but would it have been possible to say, for example, the additional income used for the proposed program of reducing asset backlog to like make a little bit clearer of what the proposed program was? You know, program of expenditure funded and differences from the, and even to say, but there were no significant differences, you know, just a little bit of comment to give it a little bit more context. You know, the actual and the proposed projected revenues, well, they aren't there because the council didn't support those. The elected members didn't support the full rate variation in 2025. You know, just a little bit of additional commentary might have, you know, outcomes achieved as a result. You know, we could say, well, what asset backlogs have been addressed. Just a couple of examples may have improved that document. Is there any reason we can't have that a little bit of additional information on there?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's purely because this is the table which is lifted out of the annual report, and IPART very clearly specifies part of their instrument exactly what that reporting will look like. So I think Mr. Metal referred to earlier the fact that this report has pulled together information which has already been published into a single report, so we haven't added additional commentary or so on around that when we've done that. We have just simply put those sources together, and the format that appears in our annual reporting is dictated by IPART. We don't have flexibility in what that looks like.
Councillor Coburn.
Yeah, look, I have a little bit of a commentary around the cost pressures on the community. Now, I note in there that there was 32 applications for the hardship policy, and only 23 of those were approved. Can I ask how you fail the criteria around meeting the hardship policy, or why? I mean, that's a significant number out of that weren't approved.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. There's typically two reasons that we would decline an application under the hardship policy. One of them is that you're unable to demonstrate that you actually are in hardship. So we require supporting information to show that people are unable to pay. I've had one just recently that we've had some back and forth on. The person admits that they're not in hardship. So you can't get over the bar of justifying that you're in hardship if you're not able to provide evidence. The second one is where we believe that the application would put the person into further hardship by what they're committing to do in their application. So we would encourage those people to take up financial counselling services, reach out to their mortgage provider or somebody like that. We won't approve an application from someone that we think is going to put them in a worse position than what they're in when they make the application.
I guess the other question is around the impact of the special rate variation. There is conversation, or what Councillor Bain mentioned, about not applying the full 15% at last year's budget meeting. And that's a good question. I don't know why it wasn't pushed for at that time, but it is what it is. From my perspective, when we look at the special rate variation and the impact of that on the long-term financial plan, it still doesn't look great as we move into those outer years. So I understand that rates improve your cash flow, and that's limited because rate income obviously is a limited amount. I personally would like to see or understand more around reducing the need for debt, particularly in that general fund, so that we can alleviate that pressure on community, because I think that's a key point within that argument. And also looking at how perhaps utilising, I know the Crown Land Reserve, for example, sits within the general fund, but by possibly using some of the income that sits within that fund for other works in commercial business or on some of the other Crown Land reserves, surely that would also decrease the need for more in that cash balance because you're topping it up out of that restricted fund back into that general fund. Is that a good perception? Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, starting with that last question first. Moving money out of or spending Crown Land Reserve money on things which are currently being paid for with unrestricted cash won't change the bottom line. It will move what's restricted versus unrestricted, but it does not change the bottom line whatsoever. So it won't change the result for the general fund. It will just change the restrictions. Moving back to some of those other points, a lot of those points are fair points, and they're things that actually form part of our financial sustainability program and things that we're actually working on. The one observation I would make is what you said about debt. I think Councillor Bain made a very astute observation earlier that I didn't include in what I said. We are very under-leveraged in debt compared to other public sector organisations. So it does look like a very big number in the long-term financial plan, but it's actually quite a small number compared to what other public sector organisations carry in debt. And we do need to consider those intergenerational equity considerations when we do that, because, like I said, in effect, we're borrowing money from someone somewhere because we need to invest the money. We're just growing our backlog if we're not renewing our assets. So we are doing a lot of work in this space. Predominantly, though, the place where we need to be doing work is on our operational expenditure, which is why the Financial Sustainability Program contains a $4 million target for savings within the General Fund over the next year. And most of our efforts is going to be focused around locating those savings and realising those.
So just to clarify that, what I'm alluding to with the shift of funds, I understand that it's not going to change the bottom line, but if we do shift funds, are we not reducing our need to borrow?
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, that won't change our need to borrow if we move those funds around. Like I said, the bottom line position is still the same. The predominance of the things that you're speaking about, where we might be spending money on Crown Land Reserves out of the General Fund, are going to be operational expenditure, not capital in nature. The borrowings we are doing are for capital projects, for reducing that asset backlog and for renewing assets. So, yeah, it won't have that impact. What I should say, though, when I did say that was one of the good points, we are very closely analysing which of our works are funded out of that and which are not, and making sure that we are fully leveraging that fund to fund capital works on Crown Reserves where we can do so.
Thank you.
Councillor Pakes.
You just highlighted about the operational plan, $4 million savings. Is there any reason why that wasn't identified prior to now as being an opportunity for savings within the long-term financial sustainability program?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we've identified operational savings in every variation of the long-term financial program, and we've realised savings in line with our targets pretty much every year up until now. As I stated earlier, what we've really seen in this year is that there are no more easy savings to be made from the operational budgets at this point in time. There is a substantial amount of work that needs to be done to identify potentials to save money out of the operating budgets without impacting on service levels. It's really easy to look at discrete areas of the organisation and say we can reduce spend on particular line items. But if you want to look at reducing a proportion of spend right across the whole organisation and consolidating what's left so that it does not impact on service delivery, that means some significant changes to the way we do things. We have commenced that work. We're already doing that at the moment, but it'll take time to identify that and to actually realise those savings and be able to guarantee them in a future budget. But like the CEO said earlier, we're certainly tackling that head on, and there's an appetite to do that.
And I like that answer. You haven't told me what the exact thing is you're doing, but technology is going to obviously play a role in the systems you use. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? I'd like the community to know that that's something that's coming and good for the budget bottom line, but good for their customer experience, I hope, too.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, technology certainly will provide a part in that, and in the work we've done to date, technology is a key emerging theme. It would be one of the top themes, but there's also others. It involves the way that we actually do work and the way that different parts of council interact with each other, those handoffs between departments and things like that. It involves the way that we staff the organisation, the way we structure the organisation. It involves the way we treat things like depreciation, how we assess asset lives, how we componentise our assets, how we consider the values of those assets and do revaluations. There is a spread of things. If you have a look at those lines, which form part of the income statement, whether the materials and contracts, depreciation and amortisation, we need to reduce each and every one of them. It's not about picking one and just saying we're going to pull a few $1 million out of here. It is making considered savings across all of those. And like I said, doing that in a way that doesn't impact service levels, doesn't impact staff and our employees and the morale. We don't want to be a razor gang, so to speak. It would be very easy just to slice out that amount of money, but it would have a significant negative impact on the way the organisation operates. That's not what we're about. We're doing this in line with our caring values, and hence why I said it's deep and it's difficult work. But yes, technology is a big part of it.
Yeah, thank you. Great message for the community. I think that one is, we've got to get a message out like that.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on this report, or Councillor White, would you like to close debate?
Thank you. I would like to close debate. So thank you for, hang on a sec. Oh, no, here you go, got it. Thank you for the report. Thanks for being proactive. It's a great start. Not entirely what I was hoping for. Good start. And you provide very convincing answers, and you moved me, from with your answers, you moved me from confident to a little less confident, because I don't want to lift and shift from other reports. When you said lift and shift from other reports, you moved me to a little less confident. So I know that I operate from a very heightened sense of sensitivity in this space, financial space, where my amygdala is already activated. So for people that don't know, that's the whole flight, fright, fight thing, which influences how how we perceive a situation. It's the half glass full or empty. Are you coming from half full or half empty? And I know that I think most of us, a few of us here, we all come from the half full. So there's not much room to move, and that's what that hypersensitivity means. I don't want to lift and shift report. I want the council organisation to take the community and councillors with it on this road to financial sustainability, but I don't know whether my expectations are ever fully going to be met. I've consistently advocated for the use of graphics, fact sheets, simpler communication tools, and I was hoping to see more reflected here. And I want more transparency and accountability and about accessibility to information. As I said before, I think councils have a responsibility to build a communication toolkit that improves communities' capacity, capability and confidence to understand the business of local government, because at the moment, much of this information, while technically sound, and your information, quite brilliant, it's just not accessible to most people. And if people can't understand it, they can't meaningfully engage with it, let alone support it. I think I made that point pretty clear many times, and I thank you for putting that together. And if people want to, myself included, we know where the information is. And I'm not alluding to the fact that I don't know where it is, because I do. I can find it. If I want to stay up till midnight, 3 o'clock in the morning, I can find it too. But I would just like that toolkit and that more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White. I'll now put the motion. Is there any dissent? There is no dissent. The motion is carried. We'll now move to item 12.2, which is notice of motion closing the gap toolkit. Would you like to move, Councillor Lawrence? And I'll second.
Yes, please.
Would you like to open debate, Councillor Lawrence?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I speak today to provide an important update on the work of the Closing the Gap Local Government Working Group and the formal launch of the Closing the Gap Partnership Strengthening Toolkit for Local Councils. Last year, I had the privilege of sitting on the working group alongside representatives from local government, New South Wales and other councils across our state. Together, we have worked to ensure that councils, the level of government closest to community, are equipped with the right tools, knowledge and cultural grounding to support the Closing the Gap reforms in meaningful and respectful ways. The launch of the toolkit is a milestone, not just for Aboriginal communities, but for every council in New South Wales. It provides councils with practical guidance, self-assessment tools, partnership models and case studies, all designed to help embed the priority reforms of the National Agreement on Closing the Gap into everyday work of the local government. These reforms emphasise shared decision-making, strengthening Aboriginal community-controlled organisations, transforming government systems and improving access to culturally safe data. What this toolkit offers is more than a document. It offers a pathway to doing better, to working more respectfully with community, and to ensuring that community voices are centred in every stage of planning, decision-making and service delivery. For generations to come, this resource will help councils build stronger, more trusted relationships with Aboriginal communities. It will help us design services that are culturally safe. It will help us listen more deeply, act with responsibility, and understand the true meaning of partnership. I also want to acknowledge the hard work of everyone who contributed to this project, the working group members, the project team, the Aboriginal organisations and community voices who shaped its direction, and the New South Wales Government for supporting its development. As a proud Dungay woman and as Deputy Mayor, I know firsthand how important it is that councils step up and play their part. This toolkit gives us what we need to do that, and I'm incredibly proud to have contributed to its creation. I look forward to seeing how council will use this resource in our own planning, engagement and partnerships. It will strengthen us, it will guide us, and it will help ensure the closing the gap is not just a policy, but practice, lived every day in the way we work with community. I commend this to my fellow colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. And I was wondering if you would accept an amendment, just in light of the fact that you've made considerable contributions to this toolkit and have represented Indigenous people, but also our council in that toolkit. I was wondering if we could do a 0.5, which says that.
Council acknowledges the significant contribution made by the Deputy Mayor to the preparation of the toolkit.
Yes. Would you be accepting of that amendment?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for raising that.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm satisfied that I've spoken to that amendment, and we'll just once again congratulate you on doing this work.
I'll just add quickly as well that the webinar's on tomorrow as well, and I'm speaking on that. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. We'll wish you all the best for tomorrow. And just noting that the extra representations that you've made during your time as a councillor has been really recognised in taking those opportunities as a Indigenous woman to do that's really I think you should be really proud and proud of what you've done for the communities all over New South Wales. Are there any questions on this notice of motion or any discussion?
Madam Mayor, if I may, please, just a question to the CEO. Can you make comment, please, on this procedure? Any sort of problems you can foresee, or is there anything we should be concerned about before we vote?
None whatsoever. I think as someone who's come into Australia and seen a huge gap between the haves and have-nots, which includes a significant proportion of First Nations people, this approach to trying to close the gap and heal our community is something that is so desperately needed, particularly in our shire. So I'm really happy to work with the Deputy Mayor to get to a position where this particular recommendation is a compromise between both of what we wanted, and it's a step in the right direction. I look forward to working with the First Nations Advisory Group to taking this forward and embedding it into some of the work we do going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I also think it's important that as a council we show solidarity with the contributions one of our own has made to the development of this toolkit. I'll have Councillor Bain, Coburn, Pakes.
Maringu, Madam Mayor, look, I would absolutely like to speak in favour of this. We've got 12.9, and according to the 2021 census, we've got 12.9% of our community are First Nations people, and I'm sure that's in 2026 that's larger than the 12.9. Again, congratulations to Councillor Lawrence for the fabulous work that she's been doing, and the commitment to closing the gap. And We are signed up to the national agreement. Local government, it's not just, this is not a if we feel like it. This is, we are committed. We have a commitment through the national agreement and partnership. We have fantastic community controlled organisations within our community that we can work together. We've got, the First Nations Advisory Group is an amazing step, but it's only a step. We've got a long way to go to close the gap. There are significant concerns about incarceration rates, domestic violence, poverty and lack of adequate housing. So there are huge things that we need to be doing, and I'm looking forward to attending the webinar tomorrow and to exploring what we can be doing as a council to become leaders in closing the gap. Marangu, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bain. Councillor Coburn.
Yes, I also commend this. I think it's been great work to have our first Dungay councillor really actively and recognised within a state organisation. Gives great credibility to the level of commitment from you. So thank you very much for that. I think it also gives a much clearer pathway and potential consistency where there seems to have been years of dysfunction. I think it's great to have something that's formed up into something that's much more palatable for councils in particular to be able to use. And I do agree with some of the issues that we're all recognised within our own community, that we really need to do a lot of work in that area to close the gap. And it's one thing to have policies on paper, and I've never really, we've never had a conversation about closing the gap in council, apart from the First Nations Advisory Group. It's great to see that this is something that we can move forward with and will allow council to really start embedding those principles in every way that everyone works. So congratulations, well done.
Thank you, Councillor Coburn. Councillor Pakes.
Yeah, I'd echo the thoughts of the previous two speakers. Councillor Lawrence, I can definitely say you're representing this community, because I'm out there often and seeing the difference between, all the people in our community, and I absolutely commend that you're making a difference in that space, and that's why we all became councillors, isn't it, to make a difference, and specifically to this community. I've got a question. I'd like to know what parts of the toolkit will most benefit people in the Macleay. Our community. We know the people in this space. What do you think will most benefit? What's a little something you can tell the people listening online and everyone in this room?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of benefits to the toolkit, like for community council and also new councillors as well. So there's some case studies in there. There's discussions around notice of motions on how, a new councillor would develop a notice of motion. There are there's stuff in there around partnerships, and there's also a what would you call it? So it's something that council can use to see where they're at and where they fit in terms of closing the gap. So it kind of gives them a bit of a scale in terms of, how they can work towards becoming more, inclusive in that regard. So, I think that's a really good, it's really good overall toolkit. Yeah, there's some of the things that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, and I'd probably just like to say it's a massive transformation in this Kempsey Shire Council, because this, from the Indigenous advisory groups now, is a massive step in this community, and it absolutely represents the community that we all represent. So hats off to you for leading that well and truly at the front. So well done. Yeah.
Councillor Wyatt.
Yes, thank you. Now, I'm just having a look at the toolkit, and I come from an organisation, state government organisation, that is so far down a pathway towards working with Aboriginal First Nations people on country. This has been fully embedded in, my organisation for 30 years, and it's getting better. When I went to the first local government conference in 2022, there was notice of motion there that was something that was about cultural awareness training, I think, and I was able to support an amendment to that that recommended every council staff and every councillor across the state of New South Wales undergo cultural assessment training as well as cultural heritage training for staff, which is something that's fully embedded into my organisation, and it was supported, which was astounding. And I'm looking at this here, and priority 1 is around the First Nations Advisory Committee, and it's got a terms of reference there. And then priority 2 has some information, has some tools and templates there about MOUs with community. And then there's another module there about cultural awareness training. I mean, I was gobsmacked surprised when I stepped into local government that it was just so far behind what I was used to in my working environment. So it's really good to actually see that it is right there for councils to pick up and see. It's entrenched there now. So hopefully local government can move along with my organisation, a state government organisation, and do this right. So it's really good. It's a bit of time warpish, really, because this has been addressed within our organisation for decades.
Thank you. Councillor Saul?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Another question, if I may, please. It was mentioned in this room that it's compulsory. Councillor Bain mentioned something's happening and it's compulsory. I don't quite understand. I thought in the report here it's an option. Am I misunderstanding something?
So local government as a nationwide collective has signed up to the Closing the Gap principles and agreement. So it's incumbent on every constituent part of local government. I think that's what you were alluding to, Councillor.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion, or would you like to?
I'll just let you know too. Oh, do you want me to close debate?
Yeah, close debate.
Yeah. So the webinar is actually next Wednesday. I'm getting ahead of myself. Just to let you know. Yeah. So you can register on the link as well. That's on my notice of motion. There's a link to register if you want to attend that. Just further, I guess, clarification around the priority reforms. Like there are 5 priority reforms in the national agreement. So the first one is partnerships and shared decision making. The second priority is building community controlled sector. The third one is transforming government organisations. The fourth one is shared access to meaningful, culturally safe data. So that data sovereignty. The fifth reform is employment, business growth, and economic prosperity. So there is more information you can learn on the link that I've put on that notice of motion as well, and you can download the toolkit. And overall, I commend this notice of motion to my colleagues, and I look forward to working with you all. And if you attend the webinar next week, thank you so much. And thank you for your kind words too. I really appreciate you all. And I love the Macleay Valley and I love what we do. And, that's why we obviously, like Councillor Pakes mentioned, that's why we, wanted to be elected so we can make a difference. And that's what I love doing and where my passion lies. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. I'll now put the motion. Is there any dissent? There is one dissenting. The motion is carried. I'll now move to item 12.3, which is a delegates report for country mayors and ALGWA. I'll move that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Matchett. I recently attended the Country Mayors Association meeting focused on financial sustainability, which at the end of last year, I brought a report about my last CMA, which is where we decided the priorities for what we'd be discussing at our meetings this year, and financial sustainability was at the top of many councils' agendas, especially for regional councils. So it was good to have those conversations. During that time, we had presentations from different councils. We actually went to the T Corp offices as well, who hosted us for a financial sustainability workshop. We heard from the Grants Commission, and we also got to be briefed on the Invest in Us campaign, which I brought a notice of my mayoral minute on as well. Given I was in Sydney and ALGWA was on, I also went to day 3 of that conference out in Blacktown, which was good to connect with some other female mayors and councillors in the sector. But I'll now open for any questions or any discussion on this one. Councillor Pakes.
Yeah, I'm going to ask the glaringly obvious one. Is given the fuel prices have been absolutely astronomical, and it's costing more to move around as a human. Has that been something that the country mayors has looked at in the way that they develop their programs? Are they looking at? I know in COVID times I sat on a screen with about 5 or 6 other people, and it was quite social. But is that something are they looking at changing their method of delivery instead of going to individual places? They're doing it remotely, or is there any move in that way?
Not as far as I know, not that's been discussed. From my understanding, meetings take place down at Parliament in sitting weeks to give councils the ability to go down there, not only to meet, but to also take that opportunity to meet with different politicians who are at Parliament at that time. So, for example, there's a country mayors coming up where we're meeting as a JO, and we'll have the opportunity to meet with different politicians there. We've tentatively locked in the Premier, Minister Moriarty, Minister Aitchison, and you don't get the opportunity for that face-to-face time. Certainly, if there was any changes to that, we'd be following the lead of the Country Mayor's Board. Further questions? Councillor Coburn?
Yeah, I did have a question. I've actually put it in through the portal and I haven't had an answer yet. And it's about the Australian Local Government Women's Association and council's membership to that. Can I ask, is that an individual membership or is the council a member? I just wanted to get some clarification around that.
Council itself does not hold any membership to ALGWA.
So it's an individual membership? Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, I was just wondered because were you invited to that?
Yeah, it came up in one of my notices and I noticed the date was with CMA.
Yeah.
It was, yeah.
No, I was just interested because there's probably, it would have been great for other female councillors to probably know about that event and even female staff within council to be involved in that. So it was just a note. That was my curiosity around that.
If you read the ALGWA newsletters, it was pretty prevalent in there as they were the major sponsor. So I'd advise to keep on those ALGNSW and other. Yeah. Councillor White?
I can answer that question. I'm a member. I had to pay for myself. But going to, and it was good. I've gone to one conference. It was excellent. But I go to what Councillor Paik says and what you said as well. Understand the benefit of networking. But for those conferences like Australian Women's one and Local Government New South Wales and the Commonwealth, they really, really, really should consider offering an online opportunity, because if we all want to go, like the reason I've not gone to any conferences again because I'm conscious of spending that money. I don't want to spend that money. I would dearly love to go, but I want to spend that money. But if they had an opportunity for an online version where we could just observe and learn and listen, I mean, it's so antiquated that they're not. So if you can take up that in your advocacy work, it's just to make it available, all of those proceedings, not those 3 conferences, make them available online so we can observe if we want.
Yep. Are there any further questions? If not, I'll close debate and I'll put the motion. Is there any dissent? There is no dissent. The motion is carried. That concludes matters on the business paper today, as we have no confidential items in the business paper. I think I just have some answers to questions that were taken earlier.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Earlier today, I took 2 questions on notice. The first of them was that differential between our borrowing costs and our interest. Our borrowing costs for the year were forecast at 1.9 million and to date are 1.9 million, so we are on track for borrowing costs. There has been no change there. Our interest, as noted in the report, our budget to date for all our interest income, including rates interest, was 5.7 million. Our year-to-date performance is 6.2 million, so $500,000 up. And given that the other costs are on track, that nets out to be the $500,000 up. I took a question on this from Councillor Pakes. The list of properties proposed for sale for unpaid rates at the moment has got 10 dwellings of some kind. They're not all described as homes. They're not all approved. But there are 10 dwellings on it, 3 vacant lots and 1 shed. And just a quick correction to a statement I previously made to Councillor Wyatt. The list of projects that are natural disaster works are in the covering report on page 29 of the business paper. It's not actually in the operational plan document, so that was my error. Thank you.
Mr. Medal.
Thank you. Just also a question from Councillor Coburn regarding the RSPCA's education program. It is not something that council has used, but schools within the Shire have. It's run through schools, and we regularly try and get the RSPCA to join us when we have our special days where we encourage microchipping and so on.
Thank you, Mr. Medal and Mr. Thorogood. And thank you, councillors, council staff and everyone who's contributed to making today's meeting a success. I think when we think of 12 months ago where we were and the decisions we were making and how things kind of played out, it's wonderful today to see us actually reach a full consensus on a majority of our motions. I think we only had one dissenting all day today. And I really think that's a testament to councillors wanting to work together, but also the fact that we actually have no one in acting positions up here at the head of the table today. We have, a bit more cohesion and a willingness to work together. And I think that that's really positive, especially, we've had more positive people speaking for items on public forum. And, it's really pleasing that we are standing shoulder to shoulder with one another. So thank you all for making contributions today. Thank you all for all of your discussion, both staff, both councillors, and everyone who's attended online and in the gallery. I hope you have a really fantastic end to the week, and please, if you can, get along to Anzac Day services this weekend. Thank you all. I now declare the meeting closed.